ya butlhari xana imani anga ku miyeta kake imani anga miyeta ka mpfumawulo wa rito ra ku ke 3 to 6 hi tshama hi ri etindleve eka SAFM hikuva u yi phamela swakudya swa miehleketo hi dya yi tlhela hi xipa ndzi ri halala Aldrin Sampear halala wena la tselekiweke eswitikweni swa vutlhari a katingiwa etimbiteni ta vutivi a sekiwa hi galaza ra vutshila loko ri mina ntombi ya mutsonga n'wa xambula makhutlo wa madyafu ri la tsundzuka n'wana hi ku heta ndzi ku hluvulela xihuku ndzi ri kula u ringana na ndlopfu halala Aldrin Sampear halala.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 8 minutes after 3 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome to Beyond the Headline with me, Aldrin Sampear. Thank you so much for choosing us this afternoon. We're with you from now up until 6 o'clock. Coming up on the show, we look at the case of one of the co-accused in 2 murder counts. This is now the premeditated charges that the head of the University of Fort Hare, head of investigation and vetting, Isaac Plaatjes, is facing. So he has been denied bail a bit earlier on. So we'll be speaking to our reporter to give us an update with regards to that. And also the court describing him as a dishonest man, considering also that he was so-called assisting the investigators when some of these allegations came to the fore in the first place. And then another story that we're looking at this hour, speaking about the courts, Zandile Mafe, remember the man accused of setting Parliament alight. So the court has found that he is unfit to hold off, that he's unfit to stand trial, meaning that he has no criminal capacity. Therefore, the trial against him would not continue, which is something again that his lawyer, that is the advocate Dalimpofu, arguing that they believe that they should be fighting this particular decision that the court has come down to, and they could come to a different conclusion. So that's one of the stories that we are looking at this afternoon. And also because of this, we look at the Criminal Procedure Act, Section 77, subsection 6A, because one of the things for me also is how do you determine the mental capacity of somebody and also whether that person can stand trial. And of course, Zandile Mafe had said before himself in court that he is fit to stand trial, but now a psychiatric evaluation had determined that actually he's not fit to hold trial. So how does a psychiatric evaluation come to that definity and says that you cannot stand trial? And is it possible at all, like we've seen before, when it comes to somebody being placed on parole, that the person all of a sudden imbues all of these good behavior, knowing that very well that if they are behaving well, it would count for them when they want to apply for parole. But then the person actually hasn't really been rehabilitated, so they know how to play the system. Well, at least some criminals know how to play the system. Can some criminals also play the system when it comes to a psychiatric evaluation? Is it possible? So that's one of the questions that we're looking at this afternoon. You can also drop me a call. I'd love to hear your take on it as well on 086 000 2032, a voice note, and 0614 104 107, and an X at Aldrin Sampear. Remember that we're also streaming live on Facebook as well as YouTube, so I'll be reading some of your comments there as well. Also on the show this afternoon, we speak to the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA. They have announced that from next year, the SASSA payments will no longer be made at post office. So from next year, date that we will be discussing with Paseka Litsatsi, SASSA beneficiaries will no longer be able to get their cash payouts from post office. However, though, they will be able to do some other administrative issues relating to their grants at the post office, including, for instance, changing your PIN and so forth. But they're not getting this is now, they won't be dispersing any money anymore. And remember, just last week we spoke about the plan to try and save the post office, which has now been adopted, and of course, which could lead to around 5,000 people losing their jobs in the post office. And And then also on the show this afternoon, we speak to Clyde Melanson, independent energy analyst. South Africans have survived 332 days of load shedding in 2023. Could anything change? Also, it seems as though that as we're moving into the summers, that load shedding is all of a sudden becoming higher and higher. And we've been told to switch off aircon because the air conditioning is also constraining the capacity of the grid. So some have even been saying that maybe the problem is with the so-called middle class and those who can afford electricity that have air conditioning in their offices and homes, and therefore maybe they should take some of the responsibility as well. Yeah. 0614-104-107, X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032, and you can also drop me a comment on Facebook as well as YouTube, where we're streaming live from.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Let's speak to SABC News reporter Abongile Yankees. So the Dimbaza Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape has denied bail to the University of Fort Hare head of investigations and vetting, Isaac Plaatjes. Plaatjes is facing 2 counts of premeditated murder of Fort Hare's fleet manager Petrus Roots, as well as Mboneli Vesele, who was the bodyguard of the Vice-Chancellor Sakela Buhlungu. Let's now speak to our reporter, that is Abongile Yankees. Abongile, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. First of all, the court also describing Plaatjes as a dishonest man.
Yes, indeed, Aldrin here has been described as a dishonest man, and to add to that, a dangerous one too, and to add to that, that he may threaten the lives of the university staff, including the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Sakela Buhlungu, and his deputy. So the court said that no, he should rather remain behind bars as the case continues. You'd recall that he is the one that's been linked to accused number 9, who is the alleged hitman on this case, Aldrin. You'd recall that accused number 9 is the alleged hitman, and he had met with Plaatjes on the day Mboneli Vesele was killed. Before and after the incident, they had booked the alleged hitman a B&B here in the suburb of Vincent in East London. So cell phone records are proving to that they had met, and even on the morning when Vesele was killed, a vehicle that was hired a hired vehicle was tracked at Ginsberg, just outside King Williamstown, where Vesele resided. So it was quite a plan, and they are saying that no, it's part of a syndicate, and the magistrate agreed with the state that he is not a candidate for bail because the state is arguing that he is the author of the hit list, even though his name is there too, even though his PA's name is there too. So they are saying that it's just a means to mislead the investigation to make him a victim. You recall that he was also accorded VIP protection, and he had came to court, I think, followed by 3 cars just because of the heightened security that he was enjoying. His life was seen as the one that could be in danger because his name was on that hit list. But now it's emerging that he, on the other hand, is the author, according to the state. Even the communication they had with the alleged hitman, which is accused number 9, he had instructed the accused number 9 to throw the phone into the sea so that that evidence cannot be traced. And that's what's happened. As we speak now, after his bail was denied, the very same court heard the bail application of accused number 6, 7, and 8 and 9. Okay. But only 2 out of those got the bail. And as I'm telling you now, accused number 9 is seen as a hitman, so he was automatically dismissed. The judgment was handed down today too. So as we speak now, only 3 are out on bail, and they will return to court on the 13th of on Wednesday, the 13th of December, where possibly indictments will be handed over to them.
Just quickly, Abongile, we know that when it comes to the bail application, the court will mostly focus on the question around whether the individual is a flight risk, but also considering the schedule that Plaatjes has been charged with, and it being called premeditated murder as well. Does this mean that the court dealing with the issue around the hit list, that the court believes that it has been authenticated and it can accept it as evidence that indeed it was Plaatjes that compiled that hit list?
The magistrate said that based on the evidence that has been presented to him, and the state really touched on this, that it's a Schedule 6 offense, and that they just need to prove 1 point according to the schedule that he falls under, so that bail can be refused. So as things stand, that so-called hit list is being admissible, is being accepted. You recall even previously when that hit list was found on that jeep which was used to kill Vesele, it was also admitted then in court because it has never been rejected. So as things stand now, that hit list is playing a crucial role in this case.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Abongile Enkis, SABC News reporter. 0614-104107. Your ex at Aldrin Sampear, and you can also drop me a comment on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube pages as well.
It's in those minds young and aflame, in the reach of those dare to reach, in the possibilities dancing just for you, in the eye and ear of a dream in fever. Yes, it's in hope. Hope and light pulled near and sent afar. Yes, it's in hope. From us to you. SABC Education. Enriching minds. Enriching lives.
Manchester United ladies and Liverpool ladies will never sleep well at night until they reach the summit. They refuse to share points as they are both interested in victory. This is the FA Women's Super League. Who will have a great day during the festive season on the field of play? Catch Manchester United ladies up against Liverpool ladies on Sunday, 17 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
19 minutes after 3 o'clock, the Economic Community of the West African States, ECOWAS, has pledged to strengthen its economic, social, political and security infrastructure so that the region can achieve meaningful progress in efforts to solve issues like unconstitutional change of government, unemployment and insecurity. These were the major highlights of the 64th Ordinary Summit of the Authority of the Heads of State and Government in the region. Channel Africa's Collins Nosa Odengebe has that story.
The summit began in a high spirit as member nations read out their expectations on how they hope to tackle the thorny issues which has held peace, security and economic development hostage for a while now in West Africa. Topmost among these remains the incidences of a constitutional changes of government which is beginning to breed the likelihood of a sub-regional grouping of countries which recently came under military administration within the region. To drive home his points, the chairman of ECOWAS and Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu says the regional body will not patronize unconstitutional government as much as it will remain open to civilian democracies while there will be a sustained dialogue with violators.
Security in the region is the focal point, and we must achieve this regardless of other commitments. I would like to reiterate the imperative of the regions to continue to re-engage under the military rule and basis of realistic and short transition plan that can deliver democracy and good governance. No alternative. I wish to underscore the fact that we stand against unconstitutional change of government in our sub-region, and we will continue to do so. I therefore urge all of us to stand strong and highly committed in the face of any challenge in Syria alone and Guinea-Bissau. The message must go down clearly that we will support a democratically elected government, not unconstitutional exercise.
The president of ECOWAS commissioned Omar Toure expressed grave concern over the lingering security crisis which has affected the inflow of foreign investment despite the presence of opportunities. Dr. Traore is confident that ECOWAS, which is facing the challenges to improve its business environment, will take advantage of the growing interest of potential investors.
Political stability, peace and security remain critical for our region. The flow of foreign capital and intra-regional trade and investment have been affected by the risk rating of our region. We are challenged to improve the business environment in our communities to take advantage of the growing interest of investors in our community. We have made the development of regional infrastructure and business-friendly policies a cornerstone of our integration. It is in this context that on 17th November 2023, we commissioned the International Coordination Center of the West Africa Power Pool in the Republic of Benin, which now enables trade in electricity across our region.
For the United Nations, the events that rocked the fragile peace in Sierra Leone and Guinea-Bissau illustrates the nature of insecurity in West Africa, and this has created a breach in development efforts that have affected the vulnerable, including women. The UN envoy to West Africa and Sahel, Leonard Santos Simao, says more efforts are required to address economic issues raging in West Africa. From Lagos, I am Collins Nosato for Channel Africa News.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
23 minutes after 3 o'clock, in conversation next with Dr. Ibu Mandaza, who's a political analyst based in Zimbabwe. As Zimbabwe's Citizens Coalition for Change, that is the CCC, says it's going to challenge the results of the controversial by-elections that took place over the weekend. The ruling ZANU-PF has won most of the seats previously held by the CCC in a by-election that most voters have boycotted. For more analysis around this, we joined by Dr. Mandaza. Dr. Mandaza, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. So the conundrum here for me is also the legitimacy of Sengezo Chabangu, who claimed to be the Secretary General of the CCC. The matter is before the court. We're still waiting for the court to come out with a decision with regards to that. But then also within the same court, a decision has been taken that those CCC members who have been expelled, that they will not be allowed to stand for these elections. What's your reading around what's happening?
It's a tragic comedy of sorts. This Shabangu guy is some mysterious person whom most in CCC seem not to know, although he said he's well known to leadership of the CCC. But so far, what he has asked for in court has ruled the day. So I'm not sure what purpose there might be for CCC to keep running back to the courts, which have denied them what they've been expecting. It's a very strange situation indeed.
Yeah, and the CCC calling it a judicial coup. And the question I also have is that because there are technical matters that are before the court in relation to an outcome of, for instance, let's say the application that has been made by the CCC members to say that they were wrongfully expelled and the party is backing them. But then on the other hand also, the Speaker of Parliament accepting a letter that comes from Chabangu, even though the CCC is saying that this person doesn't represent us.
It's very strange indeed, because if, on the one hand, as has been claimed, the CCC don't have structures, they don't have office holders beyond Shamisa himself, on what basis then do they accept this man, Shabangu, as an official of CCC? That has been the big puzzle from the outset. And it does betray a level of collusion between the various arms of the state, not to mention the judiciary in particular.
Mm-hmm. And of course, with this matter as well, the possibility of ZANU-PF winning that all-important 2/3 majority. I hear that there are discussions of a possibility of amending the constitution so that the presidential term could be also extended beyond the 2-term limit.
I'm not sure about that at all. I don't think that ZANU-PF or Mnangagwa require 2/3 majority to do what they want to do. They've shown a particular and frightening disdain for constitutionalism. They've done everything contrary to the constitution so far. I don't think that's the matter. I think it's just a question of the state wanting to punish Triple C and Chamisa in particular, and just to finish him off, which I think they've almost succeeded in doing in terms of dealing with him personally. Although, of course, the elephant in the room is the big opposition forces across the country. That is the elephant in the room. And that ZANU-PF has to reckon with.
Mm-hmm. On the issue of Chabangu, is there a possibility as well, at all, as ZANU-PF is arguing, that these are the internal battles of the Triple C? And if we look at what's happening, if indeed it is accepted that these are the internal battles of the Triple C, it also mirrors perhaps what happened during the term of the MDC as well as the MDCA. And I wonder whether those dark clouds or the instability that those two formations faced have also been dragged into the Triple C.
Yes, there have always been fault lines within the opposition, MDC and Triple C. The point is that I think the state agencies have capitalized on those fault lines in their quest, as I've said before, of trying to neutralize opposition altogether. And this has been the tendency in the Zimbabwean state and politics since independence, one of intolerance for any opposition, whether it was Joshua Nkomo and Zapu, Edgar Tekere and Zoom, Morgan Tsvangirai and MDC, and now Triple C and Chamisa. The tendency has always been to annihilate the opposition, especially the former one, which begs the question, what is it that the state in Zimbabwe wants? Do they want a one-party state? And if so, what's the use of parliament? Not especially a new one, for that matter, if you don't have an opposition. So it's a mixture of sorts, more inadvertent than design, in my view, but a mess all the same.
Yeah. Just quickly in conclusion, Chabangu has also recalled another few councillors, and the by-elections are set to be held in February. Triple C obviously in court, and we're still waiting the outcome of the court decisions on the legitimacy of Chabangu to actually be making those decisions. What do you see play out before that February by-election take place? Do you think that the courts would argue that sure, let the by-elections go ahead, and we'll deal with the matter only after the court has decided on the legitimacy of Chabangu, if that decision doesn't come before February?
I don't know. The debate has overtaken that. The current debate, from what I understand from social media in particular, is that the Triple C are debating whether to stay in parliament at all. In which case, the February by-elections might not be of any importance. In which case, ZANU-PF will simply take the seats hands down. We're yet to see whether Triple C will, in fact, boycott the parliament altogether.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Dr. Ibu Mandaza, who is an analyst based in Zimbabwe. Your take on what's playing out in Zimbabwe. After the elections were held over the weekend, the court has denied the application by some Triple C members to contest the by-elections because they had been recalled by the so-called Secretary General of the Triple C, Chabangu. However, though, the Triple C's president is denying that Chabangu is the Secretary General. He's also gone to court, but the court decision on the legitimacy of Chabangu's title is still outstanding. So we wait for the courts to make a declaration on that. However, though, the by-elections did go ahead over the weekend, and then there's another round of by-elections that are expected in February after he sent out more letters recalling some councillors even. So it's the MPs as well as the councillors. 0614-104107, your ex at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
Very good afternoon. With the news headlines, Kim Mudupima Khalumele. The Cape Town High Court has ruled that the alleged Parliament arsonist Zandile Mafe is not fit to stand trial and is not capable of following the case to mount a proper defense. The National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications has urged anyone in possession of the Econocement CEMV/AS-V32.5N to return it to their suppliers immediately. And the Australian government says it'll halve the migration intake within 2 years in an attempt to fix the country's broken immigration system. Details of these and other stories coming up 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And let's see what's happening on the roads with Rob Byrne. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, everybody. Good news coming in from KZN. The N11 route has been reopened. That's between Newcastle and Falktrust. Of course, there were trucks that were targeted and burnt overnight last night and into this morning as well. Took a while to clear it, but the N11 has been reopened. In other news coming in from KZN, a tanker is overturned N3 north at Nottingham Road. Looks like it's come off the south overturn and is blocking or is lying on the northbound. Now, there's no obstruction, and I understand the tanker is empty, but there may be some traffic control to safely remove that tanker. So between Howick and Moy River, factor in some queue time there possibly. Durban's N2, fairly heavy, a breakdown going south at Umhlanga and the breakdown going north at Umgeni. So both of those sections through the roadworks with the breakdown slow. And then heading out of Cape Town today, there's a bit of pressure on the N2 approaching Macassar. That's an earlier crash scene. All lanes have been reopened, but there is a backlog from Baden-Powell Drive. And a lovely day in Cape Town, so just expect a bit of extra traffic pressure around the beaches, particularly Cork Bay and Camps Bay along Victoria Road looking busy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
And it is time for sports with Zai Khan.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm all good, all good.
Working hard the weekend?
Hardly working is more like it.
Hardly working. Did you take some time off?
No, I was working smart. I was here at SABC.
Are you working as smart as Bafana?
Ooh. They've got a smart guy they've got their eye on.
Let's hear.
And it's the squad that's going to be called up for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations. Only a few days, that's the squad will be released. But there has been growing calls for the exciting Orlando Pirates young sensation, Relebohile Mofokeng, to make the squad. Now, one asked if he will be ready to step up and grab this kind of, honor. The Orlando Pirates coach, Jose Ribeiro, had no doubt.
All of them. All of them, honestly, all of them. I think we have talent in the team. We're playing a lot of, or many, it's never a lot, or I don't know how to express myself correctly here, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. A lot of South African players in our squad, showing that they are competitive, and in the individual case of Rile, I think the only doubt that people can have about Rile maybe is his age and experience, but well, if he gets the chance, he will get the opportunity to show if he has the capacity.
Now, in the meantime, there's Puti Mohafe. He's been confirmed to hold the fort at Polokwane City following the resignation of Lehlanolo Siema last month. Siema has since been appointed by Sekhukhune United on a 3-year contract, while his former employers scramble for his permanent replacement. Mohafe, who is yet to win a game since taking charge, has also now been asked to work alongside Bryce Aker as co-coaches and has revealed the arrangement is temporary.
I'm not on a permanent basis. Bryce Aker is coming to assist the team as a coach, and we are coaches who are working well together.
Are you co-coaches? It seems to be a new thing now in the PSA. Maybe it's happening.
We are co-coaches. We are working together. We are sharing responsibilities.
Elsewhere, Mauricio Pochettino has suggested Chelsea might consider spending in the January transfer window, saying his side are missing something. Chelsea fell back-to-back defeats for the first time under Pochettino when Everton handed them that 2-0 loss at Goodison Park, the result leaving Chelsea 12th in the Premier League, 18 points off leaders Liverpool and 10 above the drop zone after 16 matches. And finally, golf, Louis Oosthuizen surviving a tense finish to win the Alfred Dunhill Championship at Leopard Creek. He had a title he admitted he really wanted to add to his illustrious career. the 2010 Open champion, resumed his rain-delayed final round on 16 under par, level with the 2011 Masters winner Charles Schwartzel and 3 shots clear of the 2020 champion Christian Bezuidenhout. Now, Louis Oosthuizen made his move with 4 birdies in 5 holes on the back 9, and at the 17th tee, he found himself 3 shots clear at 19 under with 2 holes to play. That's a wrap of your sport on Beyond the Headlines. We'll bring you more at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Forthright and hard-hitting, Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Sometimes you'll think he's personal in approach. Well, the guy is just doing his job. Hashtag don't take it personal. Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 23 minutes now before 4 o'clock. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032 and your voice notes on 0614 104 107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. So coming up a bit later on, we'll be in conversation with Paseka Litsatsi, who is the spokesperson for SASSA. They have now decided that as from March, the end of March next year, so after the end of March, this is now from April, the post office will no longer be allowing withdrawals for SASSA beneficiaries. So the post office will no longer be offering that service for you as a SASSA beneficiary, a grant beneficiary, to go and withdraw your money from the post office. So we will be speaking to Paseka Litsatsi about this. And remember, as we said last week, we were speaking about the business rescue plan of SASSA. And for me, though, it seemed as though that it was also intrinsically linked to the work that they have received. This is now the post office, the work that the post office has received from SASSA, well, through the Post Bank, of course. But now that they have this decision that has been taken, again, what's the viability of what happens to the post office going forward? So that conversation coming up in the next short while. 0614 104 107, and you can also drop me an X. At Aldrin Sampear on Twitter and also on Facebook as well as YouTube, where we're streaming live.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Good afternoon, Aldrin and your listeners. The issue of Zandile Mafe, I'm telling you, by the end of this week, he will be sworn in as a parliamentarian for the EFF.
Afternoon, SAFM listener, and good afternoon, Aldrin Sampear. My name is Doni Machaba from Mutagwamu Komene. Aldrin, I'll listen to you every day. Every day. I like your show, my bra.
Thank you.
Every day. Keep up your good work, my bra. Thank you very much. Thank you, Aldrin.
Good day, SAFM listeners. Good day, Aldrin. I'm just disappointed, man. I'm disappointed in the ANC. I'm disappointed what the ANC is trying to do to discredit another political party. Now that's what we call a little low blow what they are doing, but now it backfired in their face. I don't know what the SG of the ANC is trying to do. He is embarrassing himself now. He is embarrassing himself because of this obsession he has with Malem. But he must now focus on the party. And
What happened?
Stop embarrassing yourself. Thank you, Lihonolo from Bloom.
Lihonolo, what happened? You're not telling us what happened.
Good afternoon, Adrian. There was never an election in this weekend. It was just another coup again. Now it makes sense that Mnangagwa got 34%. That man is unforgiving at all. Just imagine if 10% people go out to vote. It's clearly an embarrassment for the people of Zimbabwe. I'm sure Ramaphosa and Mbalula must be proud for supporting that August coup that we saw in Zimbabwe, where Mnangagwa stole election with his 34%.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
It is 19 minutes now before 4 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Andy Mashaile, who is a retired Interpol ambassador, security and a strategy expert. The South African Police Service Deputy National Commissioner, that is for crime detection, Aldrin Sampear, says that kidnapping for ransom is growing gradually in the country. His remarks are backed by the findings of a recent report that was released by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, which revealed that South Africa is among the top 10 countries with the highest rate of kidnapping in the world. However, though, security and strategy expert Andy Mashaila says that he's not surprised by CBS comments, as thousands of SAPS officers have been arrested for various crimes since 2019. Andy Mashaila now joining us on the line. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon to you, Aldrin, and the Heavyweight Champion Show and the Heavyweight Championship listeners.
We thank you so much. We thank you so much. So the remarks that have been made by General Aldrin Sampear, what do you make of them? But also, when we speak about kidnapping, it almost seems that the trend has slightly shifted from just a situation where you find that people who are wealthy having their loved ones being kidnapped. But now you find that people who are also not that wealthy, their loved ones being kidnapped for even a small ransom, which runs up to 1,000 rand or so.
Aldrin, when you look at that GTOC report and you analyze it, and it will put you and I in the frame of the African Index, which suggests and factually so tells us that we are number 3 with regards to high crime rates, low resilience rate scores, and market scores, and criminality. What that all means is a number of criminals all over the world, or should I say organized criminals, have found South Africa to be a safe haven from the laws of the country, as they talk to us when we talk to them, and regulations that govern law enforcement as well as criminal justice cluster dynamics make it easy for them to come and operate here. 1. 2, you and I have seen that some of our law enforcement agency members, be them of JMPD or the South African Policing Services, have been found to form part and parcel of the syndicates that promote this evil and satanic crime of human trafficking, because it is lucrative. It does not bring harm to the body, meaning they don't get shot, they don't get beaten up. The victim is all by herself or himself in a foreign place where he has been trafficked to under the pretext of a job and many other things, scholarship, playing for a football team, going for this or that element that they exploit psychologically from social engineering to lure people in and make money. They remain in their respective countries, they send victims here, or they come here and they control the world. So long story short, kingpin syndicates would find it easier in South Africa, and I am standing 100% behind my brother and my friend and my colleague in crime combating, General Sampear, in identifying the perpetrators of human trafficking.
Yeah. So what is it then about the current laws that we have in the country that makes it so easy for transnational crimes to be committed? Just the other week, we were speaking to the police around a drug bust that they made in Durban. But at least this one, we know it was a drug bust. We don't know of how many other drugs have been able to make their way through our borders, with their destinations being even beyond South Africa's borders. So what is it about South Africa's current laws, and also perhaps even from a detection point of view and intelligence, that makes us so susceptible to transnational crimes?
1, corruption that is sponsored. Corruption that is sponsored by members of law enforcement agencies makes the criminals feel comfortable in committing crime. What do I mean by that? Criminals do get arrested, dockets get lost, and in other spaces you would find that it's easy for the perpetrators of serious crimes like this human trafficking, find it easy to get bail, find it easy to go into the, like they say, into the cooler, which are the cells, go into the cooler, come out with bail, and disappear because we cannot track them. We don't have them on our system if they're foreign national. If they are here, it would be just a rap on the risk for them to can be afraid or to for them to can not be involved in this crime.
Yeah,
so it's quite.
Even with the case of Thabo Bester, for instance, that even though Thabo Bester was convicted and behind a high maximum prison, a C-max prison, he was still able to allegedly commit the crimes that he is accused of committing.
This takes me and you back to my first point: corruption in the whole system, your law enforcement system, your justice system, your correctional services system. Some people operate as a syndicate. There are syndicates in these 3 legs that I've spoken to you about. There are prosecutors that have been arrested for corruption. There are police officers. Just the other day, a week or two or so, a 26-year-old young police member or young police constable let go of or aided and abetted a suspect who was in lawful custody. Let that suspect go for only 1,000. Now you can imagine if people like Thabo Bester, have millions in on their accounts or stashed somewhere else, and they give those millions to members who might be corrupt at correctional services, they will facilitate until up to our border management initiative. They would be paying through as they did and having it land found themselves in Tanzania. So this tells you corruption is an endemic cancer that eats on the successes of law enforcement, the successes of prosecution, as well as proper incarceration and correctional behavior that would turn the criminals into men of good standing.
Could this also then give us a reason why we had what happened with the grey listing of South Africa?
Yes, and Aldrin Sampear. The grey listing of South Africa falls squarely on money laundering doorstep. We are seeing, when you look at that, when you take a look, when you peruse page 115 of the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime report, you have the rankings there, Aldrin. The rankings will tell you, amongst other things, that it is corruption that has led to the easy commission of crime by suspects or by criminals, because they would commit a crime knowing that they will pay their way through and they will manipulate the system right inside prison. An example would be, you and I know that a number of people were found with cell phones that would have gone into the cell of Mr. Radovan Krecha. People have been paid, and many of the movie stuff that we had all owe it to corruption, money exchanging hands, defeating the ends of justice. At the end of the day, putting us at number 3 in Africa and number 7 in the whole world.
Thank you so much for your time. Andy Mashayile there, Interpol ambassador, speaking to us about this report and also the remarks that have been made by General Shadrack Sibiya. 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032. Remember, we are also on Facebook as well as YouTube.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand. It's for our clever who turn 5-liter bottles into workout dumbbells. And for the slim oaks who bring a home-cooked scuff team to work every day. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Manchester United ladies and Liverpool ladies will never sleep well at night until they reach the summit. They refuse to share points as they are both interested in victory. This is the FA Women's Super League. who will have a great day during the festive season on the field of play. Catch Manchester United ladies up against Liverpool ladies on Sunday, 17 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December and we could be calling you. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit safm.co.za for more information. Going beyond the headline with Aldrin Sampear.
Good day, Aldrin and team. This is Bernie from Cape Town. Guys, most people draw their SASSA grants from the local supermarkets. The post office is not even based in the townships. They run out of money on paydays, and you don't have to line up by 4 o'clock in the dark and cold to draw that little money that you've been waiting for all month. The post office really need to reevaluate their existence as they fall short of their mandate. And I'm really sorry to be so negative, but South Africa is in a bad shape on so many levels. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you.
Hello, Aldrin. Good afternoon. You know, what is ZANU-PF doing in Zimbabwe? One day, Aldrin, the uprising will come because people will get tired. You know, the frustration of those Zimbabwean people is beyond repair. I don't know what can I say. I really don't know. But the frustration is there. You can hear the talking. You can hear I don't know, people are sweating. It's like everybody is being put under a heavy blanket when it's summer.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 7 minutes now before 4 o'clock. In conversation next with Paseka Litsatsi, spokesperson for the South African Social Security Agency, which has announced that as part of a broader strategy to improve the quality of cash withdrawal services for all social grant recipients, physical cash payment points and cash withdrawals of social grants inside post offices will be phased out. The phasing out process will commence in January next year. It is planned that by the end of March next year, all cash payments and the post office branch grants payments would be stopped. Paseka Litsatsi now joining us on the line. Paseka, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. How did you come to this decision?
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and thanks for having me. We came to this decision, Aldrin, after making an assessment based on what cash pay points are in terms of their lifespan. But in this instance, let me simply say we have a cash pay point. We, as the South African Social Security Agency, together with Postbank, we have realized that we are providing an unnecessary platform for the cash in transit heist. So the issue of the security was very important. Two, we spent more to process a social grant in terms of giving it to a person. Let me just make an example. One, a person who gets a child support grant of 500 Rand, if we have to continue administering these grants through the CPPs, which is cash pay points, we pay 750 to pay an individual 500 Rand. It doesn't make economic sense. But secondly, we realize that where there is an infrastructure, it will be important for people to get money anytime where they want to get it. So we then came to that particular conclusion to make sure that we circumvent all these things which I've just mentioned.
Yeah. Was part of this decision also in relation to what has happened over the past couple of months where the post office is unable to process payments?
Not necessarily related to that, Aldrin. You remember there are people who get their money from the post office. There are, of course, people who get their money from the cash pay point. The ones which would do in the halls, community halls, or temporary structures. So we're specifically talking to those who would go through those particular structures. But I think I need to emphasize one, that SASSA or Postbank will never close a pay point if there is no alternative. This is made within the realization of the fact that we don't want to inconvenience anybody. We'll do everything within our power as an organization to make sure that if a pay point is closed, there must be an alternative where people are able to get money.
Mm-hmm. So are you able to do that, you think, within the next 3 months?
We will, Aldrin. I can tell you 98% of SASSA beneficiaries are no longer getting their money within the pay points. And what we have witnessed, Aldrin, is that every month, and I can give you the statistics to that effect, every month there is a cash in transit. People who are taking money, heist, people who are taking money to the cash pay point. Secondly, these hardened criminals as well would go to a pay point, should take money, they do not necessarily care, and when they leave, we have about 4 beneficiaries of social grants laying dead. So we need to make sure that we limit that particular movement. But secondly, even if Ugogo, Epuma in a pay point with their money, they get robbed. So we need to make sure that we stop that. But what we also want to advise beneficiaries of social grant is that if we have a SASSA card, the money is secured in the card. Do not withdraw all of it. Do not even write your PIN somewhere and hide it in a drawer or somewhere, because someone somewhere will be able to lend their hands on it. And once they have it, they will go and withdraw your money. So we're trying to make sure that the lives of beneficiaries of SASSA are actually made simple, and they can then be able to access their money.
Yeah. And this decision, was there consultation between SASSA, Social Development Ministry, as well as the Post Bank and perhaps maybe the Communications Department as well? Because the Business Rescue Plan also has a link between the operations that the Post Bank is able to, the services that Post Bank is able to offer using the premises of the post office, and therefore it is linked also to the Business Rescue Plan. Was there determination made as to what impact this will have on what the business rescue practitioners had actually anticipated?
No, definitely we have made a broader consultation. And the consultation also went beyond intergovernmental approach. We went and traditional leaders have been consulted. Other NGOs have been consulted. We are trying to make sure that as many stakeholders, especially who's got an interest in terms of payment of social grants, are consulted, and we were able to make sure that we agree in terms of how we face this particular process, in to make sure that we caution our beneficiaries. But like I said in the beginning, Aldrin, the South African Social Security Agency will never agree to a pay point to be closed as long as there's no alternative. So we are working together with everybody, including the communities, to make sure that if there's a decision arrived that we close, at least there must be an alternative, so that people do not necessarily run around without getting access to their money.
Finally, you said that the process starts in January. Which branches will be affected starting in January?
We are doing it all over the country, not specifically one province. We know that some of the pay points would be concentrated within both KZN and Eastern Cape. What we have done is to make sure that we map out the roadmap to make sure that everybody is catered for and nobody is left out.
Thank you so much for your time. Paseka Litsatsi is the spokesperson for SASSA. It's 4 o'clock. It's time for the news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thanks, Aldrin. The top stories this hour: alleged parliament arsonist and not fit for trial, and a recall of certain EconoCement products. A very good afternoon. The High Court in Cape Town has ruled that the alleged parliament arsonist Zandile Mafe is not fit to stand trial and is not capable of following the case to mount a proper defense. Judge Nathan Erasmus has found that doctors have vast experience in this field, and there's no reason to doubt Dr. Thupana Sishoka's testimony about the panel of experts that compiled the report and its findings. The report found Mafe to be schizophrenic with grand persecutory delusions. Mafe faces several charges, including arson, terrorism, and housebreaking, following the fire that destroyed large parts of the parliamentary precinct about 2 years ago. The National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications has urged anyone in possession of EconoCement V32.5 to return it to their suppliers immediately. The NRCS has recalled the product from all distributors and retail outlets across South Africa. The regulator says the product does not meet the minimum strength requirements. The acting CEO, Dr. Duncan Mutengwe.
The manufacturer's letter of authority, which permits the sale of the product, has been withdrawn. The NRCS will be confiscating all stocks found in the chain of trade, calling on consumers not to buy the EconoCement CEM V/A 32.5N product and to report it to the NRCS. All distributors in possession of EconoCement should return it to their suppliers.
11 suspected illegal gold miners have been arrested at Mnyakayaka outside Tsanin in Limpopo. 10 of the suspects are also facing a charge of contravention of the Immigration Act. The suspects are expected to appear before the Make Magistrates Court soon. Batseba Maboa reports.
Police spokesperson Hlulani Mashaba says 10 of the suspects are men who are also in the country illegally. The 11th suspect, a woman, was found with 5 bags of precious metal. Police also confiscated various mining equipment, including pendukas, gas cylinders, oxygen bottles, and buckets of silver round balls used in crushing the minerals. They also seized cases of liquor. The suspects, aged between 19 and 49, are facing charges of illegal mining and the contravention of the Immigration Act. Batseba Maboa, SABC News in Polokwane.
The legal troubles of the Mafube municipality in the Free State could worsen. Workers' Union SAMU says they intend to approach the courts to force the municipality to pay the salaries of workers after it announced that workers' salaries might not be paid for December, January and February. SAMU's Tisetso Mahlatsi has also pleaded with the provincial government to dissolve the council for failing to fulfill its constitutional and financial obligations. The municipality says it cannot access its accounts to pay workers' salaries after one of its creditors, the Municipal Workers' Retirement Fund, sought a High Court order to attach the municipality's accounts. Mahlatsi says the non-payment of employees' salaries by the municipality is both unacceptable and cruel.
It's a very emotional environment for them as they are subjected to this cruel environment. And we have been raising this for years, that the provincial government must place dissolve the municipality of Mafube in terms of Section 139. But we have observed the reluctance of the provincial government of the Free State in instituting that act of the Constitution, as the municipality is unable to fulfill its constitutional obligation.
And the Australian government says it'll halve the migration intake within 2 years in an attempt to fix the country's broken immigration system. It aims to slash the annual intake to 250,000, roughly in line with the pre-pandemic levels by June 2025. Visa rules for international students and low-skilled workers will also be tightened under the new plan. Among the changes is tougher minimum English language requirements for international students and more scrutiny of those applying for a second visa, as they must prove that any further study would advance their academic aspirations or careers. The top story at 4 o'clock, the High Court in Cape Town has ruled that alleged Parliament arsonist Zandile Mafe is not fit to stand trial and is not capable of following the case to mount a proper defense. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemele.
And it's a very good afternoon to you. In your SFM sports headlines, there's golf action with Louis Oosthuizen having a dream win at the Alfred Dunhill Championships. And there's also Eric Ten Hag saying he knows what he has to do to win for Manchester United. All this and more at around 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Quite heavy going into four ways this afternoon. The N1 south from Rivonia all backed up to the Willie Mandela off-ramp, and that's because Willie Mandela is very heavy from Bryson getting across that highway bridge and up towards faulty traffic lights around Leslie Avenue. Two breakdowns on Durban's N2, both causing sizable delays. One on the southbound side before Mhlanga, so that's heavy coming through from Zabaya, and the other on the northbound in the roadworks between Spaghetti Junction and Umgeda Road, so extra delays there. And just staying with the N2 south from Inanda Road through to Spaghetti Junction has been jam-packed all day today. Just as you get through the roadworks. Left lane closed on the N3 North up at Nottingham Road. That is for a tanker crash recovery. Tanker off blocking the left lane there. And if you're coming out of Cape Town today, it's not bad. The traffic pattern's obviously a lot lighter, although the N1 fairly busy out towards Tygerberg, Claddercliff Hill territory. And the busy beaches are busy again today. So you've got some traffic congestion on Victoria Road through Camps Bay, and the main road from Fish Hawk, quite heavy backlogs through Cork Bay on your way into St James. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back.
I remember a time when my grandmother, she would make sure that she never missed that story.
SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound.
I mean, I remember Pipito, she remember all of those. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
It was fiction.
The theater of the mind. And to create a 1-hour radio play in English, get writing now and submit your play before the 22nd of January 2024. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December and we could be calling you. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit safm.co.za for more information. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
It's 9 minutes after 4 o'clock. Coming up in this hour, we speak to Clyde Mallinson, who is an independent energy analyst. We look at our record high load shedding experiences that we've had this year in compared to 2022, 127 days more. Load shedding that we experienced back in 2022. This happened now in 2023. And then at 4:20, we speak to Tiens de Boysen, who is an economic researcher at Solidarity Research Institute, to speak to us about the Solidarity Medical Professionals Network's research that they've done, which found that the majority of the respondents are against the NHI. And of course, the bill was recently passed in the National Assembly. 0614-104-107 and your ex at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
10 past 4.
10 past 4.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Let's take your calls on 086-000-2032 and your voice notes on 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032. So as I said, remember that we are also on Facebook as well as YouTube, so I'll be reading some of your comments there. I think I'm finding that Facebook is more busy compared to YouTube. But let's look at some of the comments that have come through there on YouTube. But Donald saying, "Good afternoon, Aldrin, and the brilliant team behind the scenes. You are smart, my brother." Thank you, Donald. And then this one that's Donald Mamboma. And then there's another Donald who says, the ECOWAS is toothless and is shaken because of the longest time they had make the region their own backyard and only to benefit from former colonizers. He goes on to speak about the story that we spoke about at 3:20. For as long as ZANU-PF exists in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe will remain the same, and it's upon citizens to take matters into their own hands. And Olwenene saying that listening, Mr. Sampear, thank you so much, listening from the Free State. Marsha, on that voice note that came through from Lebogang, says, there's a video that's circulating where people are seen being given EFF t-shirts while going into while going in. Inside, they are given ANC t-shirts. I think that's what Lebogang was talking about. And of course, this is in relation to what happened over the weekend, where the ANC said it was welcoming, I think, around 50 EFF members. But there was also a video of the former EFF members, there is now, being given t-shirts, like EFF t-shirts, to say that now they're going to leave the party, the EFF, and they'll be joining the ANC. And you know, as one of the former chief whips of the ANC, of the EFF rather, who was expelled because she didn't book the buses, as was the case for the EFF's 10th anniversary. Remember that? A couple of councillors that were expelled, as well as members of parliament. She was amongst those people. And when she was asked about the t-shirts that were handed over to these members or former members of the EFF, they were handed EFF t-shirts, by the way, EFF t-shirts being given to them to wear. And she said that, no, it was just part of the symbolism. So it was rather symbolic. So which means that somebody went out to go and buy EFF t-shirts, right? Somebody went out to go and buy and secure EFF t-shirts to give to these people so that they can then take these t-shirts off and then wear the new ANC t-shirts. But then both of those t-shirts were actually new on the very same day. 0614-104-107. You can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. And our studio line is 086-000-2032. You can drop me a comment on X as well as on Facebook and YouTube, where we're streaming live.
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We're in conversation next with Clyde Mallinson, independent energy analyst. So South Africans have survived 332 days of load shedding in 2023, which is an additional 127 days more than in 2022. One of the big takeaways from the data shared by the Outlier and Eskom Sapush is that we have endured 74 days of load shedding under Stage 6, highlighting that we are not managing our emergency reserves to overcome breakdown in generative infrastructure. To help us understand what the public should expect for the festive season and beyond, we are joined by Clyde Mallinson. Clyde, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Afternoon, Aldrin. Been there, got the t-shirt.
Do you have both? Clyde, let's quickly look at the data that has come out on load shedding. What I found interesting is during the middle of August and leading up to the BRICS summit, we had very, very low levels of load shedding, in some cases no load shedding at all. What happened back then in August that's not happening now in November, December?
Okay, so the best way to explain it, Aldrin, is Eskom are incredibly good at estimating what our demand is likely to be. So they actually produce a estimated forecast demand for a year ahead, basically. So at the beginning of the year, they've got a demand forecast for the whole year ahead. And of course, that demand forecast works. In fact, they're very good at doing it. And the times when they're off is they obviously can't estimate exactly when the cold snap will come in winter. Will it be this week or next week? But generally, they're very good. What they're not very good at is estimating the performance of the coal fleet. So the coal fleet performance, they say, we hope that there's only going to be 15,000 megawatts broken. We know we're going to have 5,000 megawatts that we're busy repairing on planned maintenance, and we hope it's going to be kind of like an average flat line of 15,000 that are broken. And if you plot the numbers that are actually broken, it's anything but a flat line. It varies from 12 to 20. You know, it might have an average of 16, but it's up and down, up and down. And all I can say is that in August, coming off of winter, when it was a bit warmer, we'd had those cold snaps in July. Remember, July was going quite well until we had a couple of cold snaps. We had what I would call a summer holiday, if you like, in August, where we had a period where, for no explicable reason, the coal fleet was performing a bit better than average. But you know, the horrible thing about averages, if you run for a bit better than average for a while, you've got to run for a bit worse than average to bring it back to average, if you know what I mean. So we go through these periods, and yes, during that time when we had the BRICS summit here, they still had money in the diesel cabinet, if you like, in the diesel cash jar, and so they were able to run the OCGTs, you know, pretty much at full tilt for that period. So that helped as well. But in a way, they were just lucky that they hit, I don't want to call it a purple patch, but they hit one of those reasonable good runs. And in fact, the same happened in October. October, we had much less load shedding than I had predicted. Mm-hmm. And I think Eskom were even caught by surprise, and kind of then people tend to get quite sort of bullish about that. And then along came November, and boom, the coal fleet had a bad run again, and we had a particularly bad. So it was almost as if they were out by a month in their prediction.
So what?
Here comes December, and geez, it's not looking good at the moment.
Yeah. What's our current energy availability factor standing at?
Well, I tend to rather look at what the output of the coal fleet is, because the availability factor, let me explain to you, it includes the availability, for example, of the OCGTs, the open cycle gas turbines, which are pieces of equipment that run on diesel, to you and me. They're big generators. We've got 2,000 megawatts available to Eskom, and we've got another 1,000 megawatts of OCGTs that are operated by independent power producers. So at the moment, they're all available. 3,000 megawatts available. But guess what? None of them are running as you and I speak now. Maybe they are, but they certainly weren't yesterday, because Eskom's run out of money for diesel. So the availability factor is not a very useful measure. You know, the taxi's available, but I haven't got the fare to pay for it. So it's of no use to me. So what I tend to track is the actual output, mainly from the coal fleet, because that's our kind of anchor supplier. And the reality is that the output from the coal fleet has been on an annual decline for the last 5 or 6 years. The output of the coal fleet is literally dropping by 2 or 3 percentage points every year. So if we get 180 terawatt hours out of the coal fleet in 2020, we get 172 in 2021, and 100, you know, and that's on the decline. And that's the important thing to me.
Yeah.
Not the energy availability factor.
Well, just in conclusion then, Clyde, considering the performance of these units, sometimes you find that entire Medupi doesn't have any unit that is online. What should happen now heading into the future? Also, like the short-term goals as well. And I know that you say that you don't really want to focus on the energy availability factor, but Eskom constantly comes up and says that, hey, now our energy availability factor, like we've seen, for instance, I think it was around about April, where it was at around 60%, saying that next year we should be at around 65%.
Well, in a way, Eskom monitor the energy availability factor, because that's the number they use. So I'm happy to talk about it. Any aspiration that tries to lift that availability factor is to be lauded, commended. It's a good aspiration. But in my mind, it's not very aspirational. It's a bit like saying we've got this old fleet of taxis, and we hope that more of them are going to be roadworthy next year. And what we should be doing, of course, is gradually taking those old taxis off the road as they reach end of life and putting in new generation facilities. That's what you do.
But Cabinet is saying, no. Let's reverse the decision that we've taken to phase out some of these coal power stations.
Well, it wasn't really a decision taken. It was they were being phased out because they had reached end of life. In many cases, they were costing more to run than alternatives. And also, remember that many of those old coal power stations have got shocking environmental pollution. Forget about CO2. Just think of sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxides and the poor people living close to them. We absolutely have shocking air quality on the Highveld here. And many of those power stations are due for closure. They get to a point where some people will say, we can't issue you a safety license for these boiler tubes. They might explode. They've reached it's like when a car is not safe to go on the road. So it's not as if we suddenly have decided we're going to decommission some of these. There's been a decommissioning plan on the table for the last 20 years. Eskom has known when the shutdown dates are. So all the hubris about we shouldn't be shutting these or being forced to shut these things down by the evil West wanting to give us trick money or whatever is all nonsense. We were due to shut these things down, and they're just saying if you shut them down as you're supposed to, and maybe even look at accelerating that shutdown where it's prudent, we will give you very long-term, very favorable, very low-interest loans. If you don't want them, that's fine. There's nothing forcing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a case of anyone forcing us to shut them down. They were due to be decommissioned on Eskom's own schedule.
Clyde, thank you so much for your time. Clyde Melanson, independent energy analyst. And also with that said, remember that always when it comes to issues relating to decisions that are taken by countries at a global level, we speak about sovereignty. So did we exercise our sovereignty when it comes to the just energy transition? 0614-104107. And you can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
The Special Investigating Unit continues to intensify the fight against corruption, maladministration and malfeasance by conducting investigations in the affairs of government departments, municipalities and state-owned entities with integrity and professionalism. SIU investigators do not ask for money from people who are subjects of investigations. Do not be a victim of bogus investigators claiming to be from the SIU. This message is brought to you by Special Investigating Unit, striking against corruption.
The argument of who will lift the Carling Knockout Cup will be concluded by the referee's final whistle. Stellenbosch FC and TS Galaxy FC tackles each other for the big prize at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Who will prevail eThekwini? Stellies or the Rockets? Catch the Carling Knockout Cup final between Stellenbosch FC and TS Galaxy FC on Saturday 16th December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. I hope you're doing well. George in Bloom. Could you check with Tiens when he comes to reveal the outcomes of their research? How many people have they interviewed that are not having medical aid? I think that would give an idea of who are against NHI. Thank you.
Okay, and let's speak to Tiens Dibazon, who is an economic researcher at Solidarity's Research Institute. He's now joining us on the line. So according to their research, Solidarity's medical professional networks, it has found that that many South African specialists and general practitioners would rather close their surgeries than work under the government's National Health Insurance. The NHI bill was recently approved by the National Council of Provinces, and it is now only now only requires President Cyril Ramaphosa's signature to become law. And Diens is now joining us on the line. Diens, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. Let's start off with the question that the listener just raised now. Did you interview any people who are not medical aid holders or members of a medical aid?
Good afternoon, Aldrin. It's always a pleasure. No, for this current piece of research, we only spoke to doctors and medical professionals. So most of them would most likely have medical aid. But that was not relevant to this specific study, as it was more about their perceptions of the NHI as medical practitioners.
Mm-hmm. Just quickly, though, before we go on to their perception, do you think that it does skew the outcome of your research at all, considering that these are people who are already members of medical aid schemes and are also working within the current health system and are more aligned to what is currently being done instead of having to change how payments are being made?
No, I would not think it would, because for the purpose of this study, it would not really matter. They're not speaking as recipients of medical services, but as the providers thereof. So I don't think that would make much of a difference. And I also have to note that this study was done mainly on doctors and medical professionals in private practice, but some of them are also in the public sector.
Yeah. And what are the concerns that they're raising?
Well, the concerns that they're raising is that currently they have full control over whether they want to, for instance, work in the public sector, be an employee, or have their own practices. Whereas in the NHI framework, they would no longer have that choice, and they would be assigned to certain positions by means of the so-called certificate of need, where the state could basically tell them, look, I know you've had this practice in this town for many years, but there's a greater need in a different town, and then they would have to perhaps move against their will, or doctors who have always had great control over their own careers would have to cede some of that control, and it does not sit equally well with everyone.
Okay, so is the issue mainly around the funds? So how the money will be handled? Will I get my money as soon as I get it? When the medical aid schemes are paying, will it be as smooth as well? Is that the major concern?
That is indeed one of the major concerns, but the major concern rather seems to be the freedom that doctors currently have, especially in private practice, where they can decide how many patients they would like to take on, etc. And if the NHI comes in, they would no longer have that freedom, and they would have to take on all patients that are assigned to them by the state. So the networking of medical professionals would be impacted by that. And basically they're worried about that their freedom would be infringed upon.
Yeah.
It's some are also saying that when they decided to be a doctor, it is the picture they had in mind is very different than what the NHI proposes for them.
Okay. So you say some of them may leave the country. Where would they be going to? What are some of the countries that they are looking at? And also, considering that universal health coverage is now a global resolution that has been taken at the United Nations with the SDG goals as well, which country do they think they'll be ending up at where they won't have such strict requirements or requirements that concern them?
Yes, they didn't go into much detail about that specifically, but some of them made it clear that in Canada and Britain, for instance, it's the same system, but they would have slightly more freedom in some cases and much better pay. So that's one consideration. And then some are also considering moving to the US, where it's a completely privatized medical service, or almost completely. And there are many other places like the Netherlands, for instance, where it is also mostly state-sponsored, but there is a private sector. And you have the choice in countries like the Netherlands, Switzerland, etc., of whether you want to pay into the state healthcare, the state health insurance, or if you want to make use of private service that would be comparable to our current medical aid system. Okay. So when we say universal healthcare has become a global phenomenon, that's true. And but it takes many shapes and forms. It's not universal in what it looks like. For instance, South Africa at this moment has universal healthcare. You can go free of charge to a state hospital, and if you're on medical aid, you can go to a private hospital. So it is a two-tiered system which comes with its own problems, but it is still not detrimental. It's not detrimental to the goal of universal healthcare.
Okay, thank you so much. That's Tiens de Bosson, who's an economic researcher at the Solidarity Research Institute. And the reason that I ask about which countries also that they are eyeing is because if you look at the UK, for instance, just a couple of weeks ago, Rishi Sunak announced the migration laws that they will be implementing to cut at least 300,000 immigration numbers every single year. So where would some of these doctors be going to? It's a minute after 4:30, time for the news headlines, but I'd love to hear from the doctors and the healthcare practitioners as well on the NHI.
A very good afternoon with the news headlines. Kemudu Khalemele. The Gold One mine in Springs, east of Joburg, has confirmed that all miners have come to the surface after remaining underground since Thursday. The High Court in Cape Town has ruled that alleged Parliament arsonist Zandile Mafe is not fit to stand trial and is not capable of following the case to mount a proper defense. And the Golden Globe Awards in the US has announced on X Trevor Noah's nomination for Best Stand-Up Comedian on television. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And if you're on your way out to Shoshanguve, having left Pretoria this afternoon, just factor in some queue time on the R80, the Mopani Highway. Just going to sit around the bend as you get on to Theo Martins. Joburg side, a collision before Elan's interchange on the N3 South. All lanes are open, but it's quite slow coming through from the Edenvale area. Durban, some breakdowns today in amongst the roadworks. So we've got one on the N2 North before Umgeda Road. That's very slow getting up through Spaghetti Junction. And another breakdown on the N2 between Sabaya and Gateway. That one on the southbound causing some delays. Just an update from KZN's N3 North. The tanker crash that happened around Nottingham Road is still there. They've got the big sort of tow truck recovery on scene. So the left lane is closed. Traffic is able to get past. But just be aware of some slowing traffic in that particular area. Cape Town, Nelson Mandela Boulevard, fairly slow out towards Hospital Bend, and the main road coming off Fish Hook heavy queues up through Cork Bay and into St James. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome to your sport. Let's start with South Africa's Louis Oosthuizen claiming a 2-stroke victory ahead of countryman Charles Schwartzel at the Alfred Dunhill Championship at Leopard Creek Golf Club today. Oosthuizen closed with a 3-under 69 to end on 18 under for the DP World Tour and Sunshine Tour co-sanctioned event, while Schwartzel signed for a 1-under 71 and a 16-under total. Now, earlier, the final round had resumed after weather forced the fourth round into a finish today. The final group had played 7 holes in the fourth round, with Schwartzel and Oosthuizen locked on 16 under. Completing the final group was Christian Bezuidenhout in his solo third on 14 under after a final round 4 under 68. On to soccer now, with the Bafana preliminary squad for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations to be announced a few days, there's been growing calls for the exciting Orlando Pirates young sensation Relebohile Mofokeng to make the squad. Now, when asked if he'll be ready to step up, here's what the Pirates coach Jose Rivero had to say.
We as his coaches, we feel that he, like I said several times, is a talented player. He understands football very well. He needs to improve. He's a very young player. Still needs to understand some other things that are related with the game. Like I said before about Karim as well. And sometimes talent is not enough to cover everything that this game required, but he's working hard, he's working very well, and I'm sure that whenever he gets the chance, if it's this year, next year, or whenever it happens, he's not going to disappoint anybody, because it's football, he's football, I mean, he's a football player.
That's the Orlando Pirates coach, Jose Rivero. Now let's go elsewhere. Erik ten Hag has tried to strike a positive note as he looked forward to Manchester United's potentially season-defining Champions League Group A match against Bayern Munich at Old Trafford. In their sixth and final group game, United need to win to have any chance of qualifying for the knockout stages of European football's elite club competition. However, even with victory, they will be eliminated if there's a result in the other Group A game between Copenhagen and Galatasaray. And finally, Didier Drogba, one of the biggest names in world football over the last 2 decades, has become the new team owners of the E1 World Championship. The Ivory Coast striker, who won 4 Premier League titles, 4 FA Cups and the UEFA Champions League with Chelsea between 2004 and 2015, who also played for Marseille, Galatasaray, Shanghai Shenhua and Montreal Impact, will enter his own team called Team Drogba under the colourful Ivory Coast flag for the inaugural season of the world's first all-electric race boat championship. We'll have more of these and other stories on Beyond the Headlines. Sports Headlines, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Aldrin Sampear.
Why the people in life running after money?
Just a quick one, Colonel. So if I get on the scene and there's money that's floating around and I take that money, am I guilty of a crime? Or am I committing a crime?
Yes, you are committing a crime. That's not your money.
And it's just floating in the air.
It is not your money, Aldrin. It's supposed to be part of the money that was going wherever it was going or being taken back to the depot.
What happens if it floats into my car and I'm driving a convertible?
It's still not your money. As a law-abiding citizen, you should take it back to the car.
It's wrong to assume that everybody's running after money. It is just that.
Hashtag SAFM BTH.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it's time for a market update with Paswana Mphatlele, Senior Portfolio Manager at Markweb Fund Managers. Paswana, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. So tell us what's been happening on the markets, but also considering that it's the festive season, are the markets really that busy?
You know, to be honest, actually, this week, not necessarily. Not this week, but today, we didn't see a lot of economic data flowing. We're expecting a lot going into the end of the week. Like Tuesday, we've got central banks, inflation prints in South Africa and the US. It's going to be quite a busy week from Tuesday going forward, but this is more or less like the wrap up. And that's what we're seeing today in the market. The buy momentum remains subdued, and following last week's weaker momentum, investors are basically not taking a lot of bets ahead of those central bank decision making taking place later in the week, and the key economic data that are coming out from terms of policy direction in terms of inflation. And that's why when we look at the data that even came out today, it was not necessarily positive, especially it comes from the second largest economy, which is China, and they reported on more of the deflationary pressures into the inflation print, down 0.5 more than expected, as their food prices were much weaker. And the consumer environment in there still remains tough, and therefore investors right now are just taking these ongoing developments and taking a pause and wait. And for current positioning is more about putting the money in the dollar, selling some of the short-term yields and buying those long-term yields as they still continue to signal weak growth going forward. Another news we see, we got word from the BOJ that it's stepping back from what Governor Yeda said in recent comments, whereby saying that there's little need to end those negative rates right now in the month of December, as they haven't seen enough evidence when coming to looking at the likes of wage growth to justify sustainable inflation, and therefore we saw the yen drop down by 0.8%. But when we look at the overall numbers, with not a lot of news flowing in, we see the U.S. market open mixed, down 0.2, S&P down 0.1, the Nasdaq down 0.4. Europe also mixed, FTSE down 0.5 on those political issues around there, not willing to step off the brakes on interest rates. But the DAX and CAC in Europe were higher by 0.8 and 1.6 because of those expectations of cuts. Locally here, we were down 0.5, where our resources actually disappointed us. And that's at the back of those China developing the deflationary pressures. Financials were down 0.2 back here. And industrials were up 0.4. Looking at the gold price, it was down 0.5 ahead of these big events coming later in the week. We see the gold is below that key 2000 level at $1,994 an ounce, offering a new opportunity to enter the market as the vol remains weak compared to the Bitcoin vol. Platinum was up 0.9 at $924 an ounce. Well, the oil price remains weak at the back of those weak demand outlook we see, while supply may lead to a bit more, and we see oil is sitting at $75.60 a barrel. Looking at the rand, relatively weaker with what's going on and what we expect to see later in the week. The rand is broke through the 19 rand level, 19 rand 07 against the dollar. Rand against the euro is at 20.51, and rand against the pound at 23 rand 97 cents. Okay.
And tell us about Italtal's interims.
Oh, you're looking at Intel. These are the guys that own the brands such as your CTM, your Top T. They are retailers and manufacturers, and they focus on bathroom, warehouse, tiles, amongst others. And the guys are basically came into the market to tell us that they're anticipating a profit decline in the current financial year, driven by the weak economic activity, and this has affected the trading conditions, especially they're seeing consumer confidence is down, as they don't know, they're not willing to be building and remodeling anything, as the likes of inflation has made their building costs very expensive. This has encouraged even less spending from them, affecting the business sales volumes, and they are not, and they expect, and meanwhile their manufacturing is going to experience a higher base cost because they were not fully neutralizing their factories, and this is going to give them pressure on those margins, and the guys have recorded sales, retail sales down by 2.9% year-on-year, while manufacturing sales were down by 5.9% year-on-year, but this is not a negative, it's a more industry thing when you look at these companies, and with the negative trade in this industry specifically is driven by it's after we've seen the boom during COVID, it is now taking a decline, and hopefully this will take a change while as the economic growth takes a different turn once policy has been put in the right place in terms of interest rates.
Thank you so much. That is Paswan Mphahlele, Senior Portfolio Manager at Makwe Fund Managers. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032. You can also drop me a voice note on 0614 104 107 and an X at Aldrin Sampear. Remember that we're streaming live on YouTube as well as Facebook. We'll take your comments there as well.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Hi, Aldrin Martins from Kabeka. It would be very interesting to know DA's view on this NHI, more in particular when they are in leadership, like let's say DA wins elections and stuff like that. So would they still be against it? Because I think the main issue for me with the NHI is just the issue of governance. So with DA always preaching good governance with reference to the Western Cape, I would love to hear because I mean it's a good policy, can't run away from that. It's just that it needs to land in the right hand. So are they still saying even though they would lead, the NHI must still be scrapped? So I would love to hear that view.
Yeah. Actually, maybe we should, you raise a very good point. Also, it's actually a discussion that we had before with the team, but we were speaking more from an international relations point of view and where South Africa currently stands when it comes to international relations, considering the geopolitics that is playing out, whether we speak about the Israeli-Hamas war or we speak about the Russia invasion in Ukraine, or we speak about geopolitics in general on the continent as well. Is should the Democratic Alliance become the governing party, whether it's through a coalition or through the so-called Moonshot Pact or the multi-party charter, what happens to our international policy or foreign policy? What happens to our foreign policy? And how should we understand that foreign policy, and what sort of foreign policy approach will the Democratic Alliance take? But the point that you raise around the NHI, it's important. There are some elements where the Democratic Alliance does agree with the points that have been outlined when it comes to the NHI, and also the agreement and acceptance that there should be universal health coverage, which is a part of the SDGs. The argument that Tiens has made now is that considering that as a poor person, person, you are able to go to a public hospital, it means that it is already universal access. Some people say that is not the case. However, though, with the current bill in its current form before the president, the Democratic Alliance had said that they will be going to the court to test the constitutionality of the NHI bill. Let's go to Sonto, who's joining us from Soweto. Sonto, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Aldrin.
Yep.
I personally think government shouldn't be pushing for NHI. Already they have public sector, which is there for everybody to access. So why can't they make sure that you have to choose? It's on you whether you go to private or public. The standard is so good that you don't even have to worry about paying extra money. So they're pushing something like they say, we cannot do anything. Let us go to private sector and force them to do something for us. A doctor is a doctor. You have to know your responsibility within the public. This is how you treat a patient. This is how you treat, a patient in public and private. What is so different about that? Why you have to have the new law to say the doctor in this facility treats a patient like this, and next year treat them like this. Like really, what is so difficult?
But then, Sonto, those doctors work in both private and the public sector.
I didn't get that.
So I'm saying that doctors work both in the public and the private sector. So they experience both. So they experience both sides. So the attitude that they'll give you at a public hospital, the question then needs to be asked: why don't you get the same attitude when you're at a private hospital? Because this is the same doctor that we're speaking about.
That's exactly my point. You are there at the public hospital. Why is it different that you have to be told differently? There is a bill that will tell you, Aldrin, as a doctor, this is how you treat a patient in this facility. And then when you go to private, you treat this patient like this. Why is it not a standard, situation for each and every hospital or clinic that is public owned?
Do you think that perhaps maybe with the public hospital, the issue could be around the overcrowding? Do you think that leads to also the attitude of the person? Because when we speak about customer service, part of the customer service at that interface level as well is if you are required, for instance, to deal with 100 patients, and the international standard is around one doctor to 20 patients or something like that. But when you get to the public sector, you have the number being very high, and that then also influences or affects your attitude at work.
But you knew exactly what you are signing up for. You knew that you will be seeing 100 people. It's not like it's a shocking environment. They were like, oh, what's expecting 20? And now I'm expected to treat 100 people. You knew exactly what you are signing up for. So you have to change the attitude, not because now there is a law, things are going to change overnight. What is it going to change?
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's a class issue as well. Sonto there from Soweto. Do you agree with the point that she raises there? Also, the level of service that you get and the quality of that service that you get, depending on whether you go to a public hospital or private hospital. But you find that the very same doctor sometimes works both in the public hospital as well as the private hospital. But the attitude to a patient in a public hospital is much different to the attitude that they give to patients in the private hospital. Does class also inform what sort of service is being rendered and how you are being addressed during that moment of need while you're in hospital? Thomas is joining us from Randburg. Good afternoon.
Hi, Aldrin.
Sure, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Sure, Thomas, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to tell you about an experience that happened to my mother. She travels all the time for work, and during one winter, I think it was in London, she broke her leg while walking on the street, or broke her ankle, I should say. And, she's obviously on private care here in South Africa. But what happened really shocked her in how she was treated in the NHI system, the slow process of payment. One of the things that sort of shocked her was the treatment of the doctors, and they sent the bill via post. So she got a bill 9 months later or something.
Via post, meaning the post office?
The post office, yes, to South Africa. So, I think that your previous caller was talking about how our doctors are going to leave the country.
Yeah.
Yes, I have no doubt that that is probably going to happen. But at the same time, I don't think the grass is always greener. And if I can just comment on what you guys are currently talking about,
Sure.
as a teacher who's moved from a state school to a private school, I can imagine that a doctor who works, in a state environment compared to a private environment, the level of respect you get from your peers is substantially different, and the environment that you're working in is substantially different. So I can completely empathize for a doctor who's having a hard time working in a state hospital compared to his private practice, where that private practice might be linked to his name in a Google review or something like that. So there's a lot more accountability on a private side than the state side.
Okay, no point taken. Thank you so much, Thomas there from Randburg. Your take on it, 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Adrian, my man, good afternoon. Yeah, no, I think the policies which the government are implementing, they are all good policies, all good policies. The only problem we have is the implementation and to let them work as they were designed to do their job. But no, we don't have people to do that because people always think about their pockets and stuff. So it can work, it will work, but it does need a political will from the politicians who are leading us in France, especially the ANC government. Thank you. You're speaking to Ben Yonka from Rustenburg in Lierach at Sanford.
Thank you, Benny. Some of the X's that have come through, or no, rather, these are comments. Jeez, I've got so many screens in front of me. So we've got Facebook, we've got YouTube, we've got WhatsApp. I've got my Twitter account or my X account on my phone. Yeah, so there's a lot. So there are many ways to get in touch with us. So please do send us through your comments on your preferred platform where you'd love to engage us from, whether it is Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, or even X. On the WhatsApp line, this text from Dr. T, who says, I am a GP in private practice. I support the NHI. In my opinion, it is mainly the white colleagues that are against the NHI, and I suspect that this study focused on them. And that is a Dr. T from the Eastern Cape. Do you agree with Dr. T's opinion? Then there's this one. It is a bit long, so please do bear with me. It says, I understand your concerns about the potential impact of the national insurance, national health insurance, the NHI, and medical practitioners, but I strongly disagree with the notion that solidarity among doctors should be prioritized over the well-being of all citizens, particularly those that have been historically marginalized. The NHI is designed to ensure that everyone has access to quality healthcare regardless of their race or socio-economic status. By opposing the NHI, solidarity is effectively blocking transformation and perpetuating inequality in the healthcare system. Furthermore, it is important to note that the NHI is not only about providing affordable healthcare to all citizens, but also about addressing the systemic issues that have led to the current state of our healthcare system. It's about creating a more equitable and sustainable system that benefits everyone, including black medical practitioners. I urge you to consider the bigger picture and think about how the NHI can benefit not only the black medical practitioners, but also the broader community. Let's work together to create a more inclusive and equitable healthcare system for all. And that is the point that is being raised there in that text. It is unsigned, and that came from from our WhatsApp line. I just quickly want to, because there's a point that was raised by the South African Medical Association as well, Sama, with the concerns that they have around the bill. Okay, so SAMA's chairperson Mvuyiso Mzukwa told SABC News that they support the concept of universal healthcare, but disputed whether the NHI will achieve this goal. And the reason that I raised this, following the text that I just read now, is because there is race that is attached to it. But Mvuyiso Mzukwa is a black man, and he is the chairperson of the South African Medical Association. I have heard from some black practitioners as well, outside of Mvuyiso, who are against the bill in its current form. but I'd love to hear your opinion with regards to this as well. 0614-104-1807. And you can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032. Tim is joining us from Soweto. Good evening.
Hi, Aldrin. How are you?
Good. How's it?
Good, man. Good show. I just want to say this, man. The NHI, it's a good deal. And we have to understand and accept that we cannot run away from the fact that this bill is going to affect big business. And it's a fact. And sometimes for the good of the nation, there are certain prices that we definitely have to pay. And part of it is that I think big business would need to adjust themselves, like any other businessman, adjust themselves towards this, because the greater objection of this is big business. It's private people who are providing private health care. But imagine
what do you think that they stand to lose, from your understanding?
Well, remember, this is from my understanding. Obviously, if the NHI comes into place, they will probably have to see patients that government will pay for them seeing those patients for a much lesser rate than what they would charge on the medical aid. That's what they stand to lose, But if you're looking at the nation at large, volumes in hospitals will be, because I can go to any private doctor, consult there, they bill government for my services, and we don't have long queues that we see. People have to wait 3 hours to get health services. So basically, the bigger issue, the noise and the more objection comes from private business, or big business for that matter, because they stand to lose, but we stand to gain as a nation. South Africa is one of the most unequal nations, in the world, and we're working towards changing the narrative.
Mm-hmm. But intrinsically linked to that, Tim, is also the ability to dispense the money to the health practitioners efficiently. The point that was raised now early on with that phone call, that I think it was Thomas who called us early on from Randburg, is with the pilot and seeing the slow pace of payment and so forth, and the concerns that have been raised there.
Yeah, well, if we were to implement the NHI, we must anticipate teething problems as well. We're not saying it's going to be, start and go and all systems go. Obviously, like any other thing that is implemented, there'll be teething problems, But I think this is a good system. We need to give it a chance, and we need to implement it in such a way that it doesn't kill big business. Yeah. But obviously, big business has to accept that their profit margin, mainly is the same.
Okay, Tim there from Soweto. Let's quickly go to Bonkosi, who's joining us from Cape Town. Good evening.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and good afternoon to you. Look, I think South Africans can be very naive sometimes. I was listening to some of the people who are saying the NHI can work and it's a good thing. I think there's this tendency of throwing money after problems. Look, again, I think that there are many fundamental problems with NHI. NHI is not going to solve the problem of inefficiency in government. If you look at the health expenditure currently in government, I think health is number one and number two in terms of expenditure.
Between education then health,
Absolutely. And then the key question that we need to ask ourselves now is the government managing and spending the current, available resources well? And the answer is a big no. The experience in hospitals currently, are our hospitals managed properly by right people in those positions? And many of them, the answer is no. So until we solve the systemic problems in our health system, we can't expect that NHI is going to be a solution or a silver bullet. And I think that's a fundamental problem here.
Thank you, Bonkosi. The point also being raised by the health ombudsman around the state of hospitals. Remember when we did a story on the Rahima Musa Mother and Child Hospital and some of the systemic problems that were found there, including the issue around staff shortages. And then, of course, there's the issue around resources. With the resources now be mobilized efficiently, if we have one pot, one kitty, that we use for every person, whether you are an LSM 10, like the most wealthy person or people in the country, that you will also have this one kitty that we all would use the money for our health from. Would that kitty be run sufficiently? And I think the other part around this and the pushback is the state would need to bear some responsibility as well. That the reason that there is this lack of trust and confidence in the state's ability to run the NHI is because of the state's current conduct when it comes to how it is running the public service healthcare system. And we can't discount that part. It is a legitimate concern. It's 5 o'clock, time for the news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you. Workers come to the surface at Springs Mine in a major nomination for Trevor Noah. Good day to you. The Gold One mine in Springs, east of Johannesburg, has confirmed that all miners who've come to the surface after remaining underground since Thursday, about 400 mine workers had been underground in what was described as a sit-in strike, while the company said it was a hostage situation. It's also believed this was in protest at the dismissal of 50 workers following a labour dispute in October. One mine's head of legal is Ziad Hassam.
Now been brought back to surface. They are going through the medical team. They're being assessed, and those who require further intervention will be taken to nearby hospitals. As far as characterization is concerned, right at the outset, it was characterized as a sit-in by those acting in solidarity with the employees who had been dismissed following their involvement in the previous situation. But there are a very large number of people who were held over the past 4 days against their will. And so that is certainly a hostage situation. It's been termed as such by Minister Gwede Mantashe, and it's also been considered as such by the police.
Postbank has confirmed that by the end of March next year, SASSA beneficiaries will no longer be able to withdraw social grant money at the post office, with the physical cash payment point set to be phased out from January. SASSA recipients have been reassured that they will be able to use their gold cards at any other ATM and at retail stores. Postbank spokesperson Bongani Diako has emphasized that the gold cards will not expire this month.
The cards do not expire this December. They will work to pay social grants. The cards will work also in 2024 to pay social grants. We advise all social grants beneficiaries using SASSA Gold cards to ignore anyone that tells them that the cards will stop working and they must change cards.
Western Cape High Court Judge Nathan Erasmus has ruled that Parliament fire accused Zandile Mafe is not fit to stand trial and is not capable of following the case to mount a proper defence. He's found that doctors have vast experience in this field, and there's no reason to doubt a doctor's testimony about the panel of experts who compiled the report and its findings. The report found Mafe to be schizophrenic. He faces several charges, including arson, terrorism and housebreaking, following the fire that destroyed large parts of the parliamentary precinct about 2 years ago. A Malawian national has been handed 2 life sentences in the Verulam Regional Court north of Durban. He was convicted of kidnapping, raping and robbing a woman, as well as housebreaking. The court found that he attacked the woman while she was walking with a companion. She was repeatedly raped, while the attacker also forced the victim to take him to her home, which he then ransacked. Police spokesperson Robert Netjaunda.
The Phoenix Family Violence, Child Protection and Special Offences Unit detectives have secured a double life imprisonment sentence and 38 years in jail for Eza Ali, a 26-year-old Malawian national who was found guilty of kidnapping, rape, robbery, pointing of a knife and housebreaking. The sentence was handed by the Verulam Regional Court on 28 November this year. Ali was apprehended by committee members and after possible identification was arrested and positively linked to the case of rape. Detectives successfully opposed his several bids for bail and was kept behind bars until the day of his sentencing.
The Golden Globe Awards in the US has announced on X Trevor Noah's nomination for Best Stand-Up Comedian on Television. The South African comedian and writer is nominated for his 4th stand-up comedy on Netflix titled Trevor Noah, Where Was I? His nomination forms part of the 2 new categories that were added this year. The awards ceremony will take place in January. The top story, the Gold One mine in Springs, east of Johannesburg, has confirmed that all miners have come to the surface after remaining underground since Thursday. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Coase.
And welcome to your sport. We have plenty to talk about with regards to the Proteas. They are in action tomorrow, taking on India. But there's also the Proteas batsman. Tristan Stubbs says his present focus is looking for the opportunities that come his way. We also have news of ex-Sundowns and Al Ahly star told that he needs 6 months to lose weight. We'll find out more at around 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pressure on the N12 leaving Joburg out towards Boksburg and Benoni. Traffic queuing from after the Edenvale exit down through Craft Road. The obstruction there looks to be around the Jet Park Road exit. Pretoria's Mobopani Highway, heavy queues this afternoon around the bend up to Theo Martins. Durban, plenty of traffic that side as well today. Still got the breakdown on the N2 south at Gateway. So coming in from the airport, you'll sit from Sabaya. Once you get past that, it's really heavy from Queen Nandi Drive all the way down through the construction towards Spaghetti Junction. That N2 south has been jam-packed all day today. Umgeta Road out through Springfield Park towards the N2, that's heavy. Plenty of traffic on the M4, the Ruth First Highway, Durban up over Blue Lagoon towards Virginia Airport, and leaving Umhlanga, it's quite slow going as well. The little bit between Ashburton and Cato Ridge through the roadworks looks okay, nothing too serious there to report in on it this hour. Cape Town today stays busy around Camps Bay on Victoria Road. The backlogs that we had earlier around the Corker Bay, St James area on Main Road, that's all eased up quite nicely. A lot of that traffic just sort of arriving up into the Muizenberg area, and fairly busy at Montague Gardens, Montague Drive, very slow down to Bosmansdam Road, which is slow towards the N7. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Afternoon, Andren. This is Magdalene from Bloom.
Liratodi, good afternoon.
Aldrin, how are you?
Let's hear from Tandisa joining us from Matlosano. Good afternoon.
Edwin, how are you?
Aldrin.
Who?
It's Aldrin.
What? Excuse me. My name is what? My name is my name is my name is what? My name is
Aldrin Sampear.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
My name is what? My name is who? My name is what? My name is who? My name is Aldrin Sampear.
My daughter is loving Aldrin Sampear. Enjoy your show, man.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Well, I guess now that the innerland schools are closed and the coastal schools are closing, we won't be hearing from the children. No traveling with dad or mum on the afternoon after school and listening to Beyond the Headlines and, telling Uncle Aldrin how much you love him and you love the show and contribute to the show as well. Well, we're going to miss that. I'm still here for for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, for the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to take a break just after Friday next week, and then we're back again on the 8th of January. So at least there'll be some little bit of rest that we will be enjoying with other children. With other children who knew how to negotiate their contracts properly and perhaps went into an industry that actually shuts down during the festive season. But then us essential workers, as we were essential workers during COVID-19 as well, continue to work. Actually, I remember when I was working at Jose FM, a community radio station, and our CEO, it was leading into the festive season, Phineas, and our CEO was now, while announcing the programming plan for the festive season. And as she announces the plan, we realized that actually not a lot has changed. So most of us would actually be working during that season, apart from the admin staff that will be taking the festive season break. Most of us will be working. And she's like, but guys, nobody forced you to do what you currently do. Nobody forced you to become a radio presenter. Nobody forced you to become a newsreader. You took, yes, yes, she said, you took the decision and said that, listen, I want to be a radio presenter. You took the decision that says that I want to be a newsreader, right? So you took the decision. And when it is the festive season, we don't stop listening to radio. So there's no way that you can be taking time off during the festive season just because it is the festive season, maybe there must be another reason that you give me why you should be taking time off, because we're going to be listening to you guys 24/7. Well, so it is what it is. So we've chosen this career, and this is where we is, the essential workers. 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. And our studio line is 086 0002032. Coming up on the show in this hour, we speak to Sizwe Pamla, who is the spokesperson for the Gauteng Premier, as we look at this conversation in relation to the Gauteng province being amongst the provinces that are struggling to pay their invoices to service providers in time. And this is following the conversation that we had last week, the data that came from the Public Service Commission around government state entities failing to pay service providers within the 30 days. And remember, we also spoke about the task team that was set up to deal with the issues in relation to red tape, and Sipho Nkosi was appointed to that team. And last week we heard that, well, it hasn't really made much difference so far since the president announced it last year in 2022. But before that, we'll be in conversation with Madoda Mthembu, Operations and Maintenance Manager for Central and Northern Region, as we look at the festive season campaign to ensure that we have safer roads. 0614-104107 and your ex at Aldrin Sampear. Let's take some of your voice notes.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Hi, Aldrin. I'm a healthcare practitioner, and there's one question which I was thinking about is, if the government is the only payer of or employer of healthcare practitioners, do they take care of the malpractice insurance, or how does that work?
Hi, Aldrin and South Africans. It's Eddie from Ondal Stress. You know, the NHI issue, I think it's a good way of doing things. But you'll have problem from people who will complain a lot. Will be those, you know, who wants to have their own corners, you know, especially the privileged, who don't want to share resources with the have-nots. Most comments, negative comments, will come from that sector or from that class. It's a good way to do. We only need to manage it properly. And I just hope that it won't be like these state agencies that have collapsed. It's a good system. It's a good one. I've been in the UK. I've seen it working. And maybe the only difference will be how do we implement it here. Thank you.
Evening, Aldrin, and all SAFM listeners. The NHI, majority of people, I think they are misinformed. This benefits more the private sector and is going to be looting from the government day in, day out, because a lot of people who are going in the private sector, into government hospitals, will now go and seek medication from the private sector. And the private sector is going to be billing the government hefty prices. So many people are misinformed about this summit in Cape Town.
Going beyond the headline with Aldrin Sampear.
0614-104107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Let's speak to Madoda Mthembu, who's the Operations Manager, Operations and Maintenance Manager of Central Northern Region. So the South African National Roads Agency shares its state of readiness for the national roads ahead of the festive season. Holiday makers are going to be on the road this week, and traffic will ramp up ahead of the public holiday on the 15th of December. Do you guys remember that we have a public holiday on the 15th of December? Ama-Pogo Day. Yes, Ama-Pogo Day. So in the last festive season, from the period of the 1st of December to 1st of December 2022 to the 11th of January 2023, the nation recorded 1,451 road deaths, which was a 14% decrease compared to the same period in a 2021 holiday season. To tell us more about the preparations on the road safety education and its role, we speak to Madoda Mthembu. Madoda, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Hello, good afternoon to you and your business.
So tell us about your road safety campaign and what you guys intend on doing this time around that is different to ensure that we bring down the road fatalities as well as injuries being caused on the road.
Okay, so from our side as the custodian of the road infrastructure, our contribution to safety is to make sure that the road network itself is safe to travel on. So we put up measures that should there be any failure, like development of potholes and so on, we go in there and fix them almost immediately. So just to make sure that we provide infrastructure that is reliable.
Providing the infrastructure that is reliable, but when it comes to communicating with the road users as well and what it is that's expected from them as well, what are you doing there?
If you travel on our national roads, you will notice some signboards. So if maybe, for example, there are incidents or something that's happening on the road, we have erected some signboards. We have what we call route managers. These are the engineers that we have employed throughout our network who ensure that on a daily basis the roads are maintained and are kept safe. And if the members of the public want to report something, we have displayed their cell numbers on those signboards distributed across the length and the stretch of our road network. So if someone picks up something that is pose a danger to the motoring public, we request them to phone those cell numbers.
Yeah. Do you expect that there could be an increase in construction during this period as well? Because sometimes you find that you get one lanes, the stop and goes that you find on the road while there is the construction that is taking place, or even the maintenance of the road. Do you expect that could be ramped up this festive season?
As of December 14, we in the construction industry we have what we call a shutdown. So the shutdown will begin this coming weekend up until I think the 8th of January. So all construction projects will definitely shut down. And where there was construction, we have what we call traffic accommodation plans, like a stop-go operations. In our case, we normally provide detours or bypasses if there's a major construction project happening. But of course, on the maintenance side, because we don't stop maintenance. If there are maintenance activities, we normally do them during the day, and if maybe the stop-go operation, we do what we do, fixing a pothole, doing a patch, and then we clean it up before the night begins. So we normally have those, but I think during this time there will be few of those.
Yeah, and in conclusion, another issue that was raised before was sometimes objects being placed in the middle of the road to try and get the driver to stop, and then the driver ends up being a victim of crime. Or sometimes you find that there are objects that are being thrown from above, from a bridge, for instance, onto the road that goes under the bridge. Do you guys have any security measures that you're working around with to deal with that aspect around road safety?
As far as that is concerned, as in my opening remarks, I said that we are the custodian of the road infrastructure, but this is more of a security issue in which our sister departments in the security cluster sort of attend to it. We do have what we call route patrols that patrol our road, but normally that we do in some national roads, especially in the rural part of the network, we have route patrols that just pass the road once a day. And here in Gauteng, which is one of our busiest national roads, we do those route patrols every 8 hours. But as you can see, that is not going to be sufficient to deter what criminals are doing. So we rely heavily on our security cluster to attend to those issues of security.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Matota Mthembu is Operations and Maintenance Manager at Sunrail's Northern Region. 0614-104107. Your ex at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Comments on Facebook as well as YouTube, where we're streaming live.
Rand Water is concerned about the significant increase of water consumption in its areas of supply. The increase in water consumption is putting severe strain on Rand Water's distribution network. To save water, please do not wash your cars with hose pipes. Use buckets. Water your garden with sprinklers between sunset and sunrise. Do not wash your pavements with hose pipes. Use brooms. Repair your leaking taps. Cover your swimming pools to avoid quick evaporation. Shower instead of bathing in a tub.
This message is sponsored by Rand Water in partnership with City of Joburg, City of Ekurhuleni, and City of Tshwane.
The 22-man battle at Borussia Park is high-level evidence of how powerful 3 points is. Borussia Mönchengladbach and SV Werder Bremen are both in dire need of victory to create a crucial path to the top half of the German elite league. Who will dominate the 90 minutes? The Foles or the River Islanders? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness the nail-biting clash between Borussia Mönchengladbach and SV Werder Bremen on Friday, 15 December at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December and we could be calling you. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit safm.co.za for more information.
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Good afternoon, SAFM and to listeners. It's Sullivan, Governor from Durban. Although my concern with the NHI health bullies, 2 points. Point number one, all our specialists and our professional doctors will leave our country and seek healthcare professional overseas. Let's face it, because it would not be feasible for them to operate. That's just my opinion. And point number two, will service delivery improve in our hospitals? Because currently, our state hospitals are not to 100%. So with the NHI, will it help improving service deliveries? Thank you.
Afternoon, Adrian. No, I guess I don't understand the logic that is saying the stations are old. I mean, what happened in Germany? Germany had decommissioned and realizing that this new energy is not working, they went back to the same power station and revived them. There's nothing wrong. It's just Thank you.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Let's speak to Sizwa Pamla, who's the spokesperson for the Gauteng Premier. So we've been running a series of conversations around the latest report emerging from the Public Service Commission surrounding non-compliance and payment of invoices to suppliers within 30 days. One of the provinces that has emerged as a repeat offender is Gauteng, which contributed with the highest number of invoices paid after 30 days, which amounted to around 45,538 invoices valued at 3.5 billion in the first quarter of 2023-2024 financial year. To tell us more about how the Office of the Premier plans to support departments struggling to pay their invoices on time, Sizwe Pamla now joining us on the line. Sizwe, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. What's the Premier's take on the outcomes from the Public Service Commission around departments and entities in the province failing to pay their suppliers within the 30 days timeline?
Afternoon to everyone, the listeners. Alvin, to be honest, the figures you've quoted there are not the figures that the provincial government currently has. The outstanding invoices from the provincial government amount to 1 billion rand 64 million. And 99% of those invoices belong to the Department of Health, which means all the other departments are complying, 13 of them. They are paying within 30 days, and they don't have any outstanding invoices. The reason why the Department of Health is the one that is a culprit is, firstly, number one, it carries the biggest budget in the province. That's number one. Number two, it's been struggling with a lot of litigation, which means as soon as there is a court order that it has to pay, that's money that's not budgeted for. And as a result, it means that it has to go back to its budget, try to reconfigure the finances to make sure that it complies before its accounts are attached. So as things stand, the Gauteng government is very happy with the progress that it has made, and with the fact that the 13 of its government departments are actually complying.
Yeah, but the report says paid after the 30 days, meaning that the money would have been paid, not what the balance is currently, but the money that is paid after the 30 days. So that's what we're referring to. What's the Premier's take on that? Because the agreement is that the service providers must be paid within 30 days, and you are paying 50% of your service providers after the 30 days.
No, we actually dispute that report because, like I'm saying, that is the report that I'm talking about from the provincial government, with the exception of the Department of Health and to a certain extent the Department of Infrastructure. All of the Gauteng departments are complying. So that's why I'm saying to say there's only two departments. And of course, if you look at the Department of Infrastructure, it deals with projects, and there's a lot of work that needs to happen before a project can receive its payment.
Yeah.
But the report that I'm trying to correct is the one that says Gauteng is one of the leading culprits. I'm saying that from where we stand, all of the reports that we have point to the fact that there's compliance with the 30 days time frame, and that only two departments held 99% of the invoices that are outstanding that have not been paid within 30 days, but all of the other departments are complying.
So does it mean that you will be challenging this report or what? Because this is, it also comes from Treasury.
No, we will be challenging that report because, like I'm saying, the 4 points, we have actually gone through the reports. We have seen it. The 4.7 billion that people are talking about it complies of all of the other provinces combined. So Gauteng, even the figures that we are quoting are not the figures that we have. Like I'm saying that the figures with the report that I'm sitting with here is 1,064 million. That's the figure that Gauteng can confirm. All of the other figures that are being quoted in the media are not actually true.
Yeah, okay. So I'm quoting from the report itself, but not necessarily from the other media houses' report. So the report says provincial departments invoices after 30 days. After 30 days, Gauteng is standing at 45,538 invoices outstanding, which amounts to around 3.5 billion. Which is around 50% of all invoices that needs to have been paid within 30 days, but wasn't paid within 30 days, or was paid after the 30 days. So are you saying that as Gauteng, you don't necessarily have a problem when it comes with making payments within 30 days? And if you do those payments within 30 days, what would your percentage of invoices paid within 30 days stand at?
Yeah, I'm saying that the only outstanding, the only department that so far failed to comply, in particular, is the Department of Health, followed by the Department of Infrastructure. The Department of Infrastructure, its case is unique because it deals with projects.
Sure.
But when it comes to Department of Health, we are talking about a lot of litigation, which means they are paying a lot of money that they didn't budget for. So the invoices that we currently have from our report points to the fact that 99% of the outstanding invoices from the province come from one single department. All the other departments have actually complied.
So would you say that is that 50%?
Yes.
So it's the 50% for the Department of Health and Infrastructure?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the plans then to deal with this? Or are you going to argue with Treasury as well as the President, who has also pushed for this, that the money must be paid within 30 days, to say why you should be, the Public Service Commission as well as Treasury should be more lenient on the province when it comes to these two departments?
Well, they are receiving all the necessary support. The problem is that when it comes to litigation, once you have a court order, if you are not intending to appeal, it means that then you have to comply. And if you fail to comply, you risk your own accounts being attached, because then you are actually failing to follow a court order. But they are receiving all the necessary support, the departments, because it's not necessarily a question of complying for the sake of it. It's because the province itself is committed to ensuring that to grow the economy, we have all agreed that going forward, small medium enterprises are going to be the ones that are going to carry the burden of growing the economy. And if you do not then give them the money that they need at a particular time, it means that you make it very much possible for them to actually fail. So the issue of compliance from Gauteng government isn't just a question of ticking the box. It is actually a commitment that the Premier has made, because he has an appreciation that going forward, there is a responsibility for the government to bring informal economy into the mainstream economy. And to do that, you need to make sure that you pay them on time, and you make sure that you give them all the necessary support.
Has there been anyone who's been held accountable for not paying within the 30 days?
I'm not aware of anyone who has been held accountable. Like I said, that even the Department of Health that we're talking about, it's not a question that they are not necessarily doing the right thing. It's a question that they find themselves in a peculiar situation where they are facing a number of lawsuits, and when they lose these lawsuits, it means that they have not budgeted for this money. And instead of paying for the service providers, sometimes they find themselves having to first prioritize the issue of litigation. Either they appeal or they actually just comply with the court order and pay. But even with the Department of Health, a lot of work has gone into actually assisting them to make sure that where they can, they're able to pay the service providers as soon as possible.
Just quickly, since we have you on the line, Sizwe, you've done some work with COSATU as well. There's a question that came up earlier on in relation to the NHI, now that we're speaking about the health department as well. So when there are lawsuits against the Department of Health under the NHI, who would be liable to pay? Would it be the state?
Well, I wouldn't really want to venture into that debate, yes. I suppose the people from the National Department of Health will be the most relevant people. Although health is a provincial mandate, but I want to believe that a fund under the NHI will be managed at a national level. So the National Department of Health will be the most relevant people in this case.
Thank you so much for your time. Sizwe Pamla, that was the spokesperson for the Gauteng Premier. It is 2 minutes after 5:30. It's time for the news headlines. Apologies, we're late. Greg Ho standing by.
Thank you, Aldrin. A quick look at those headlines. Petro SA says US sanctions imposed on Russia's Gazprom Bank are not applicable to South Africa. The Gold One mine in Springs east of Johannesburg has confirmed that all miners have come to the surface, and Kenya Airways has told its customers to be prepared for potential disruptions to its flights due to a shortage of spare parts. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow on the Mobopani Highway out of Pretoria towards Shoshanguve. You're going to be asked to sit in traffic basically from the on-ramp from Eskia and Pafali down to the bend and on to Theo Martins. Heads up Durban's N2 South, very heavy today, queuing before you even get to Queen Nandi Drive all the way down to Spaghetti Junction through those roadworks, and the M4 Ruthfirst Highway crash near the M41 Gateway exit. So it's heavy. The crash is on the southbound side, so it's very heavy coming through Umhlanga Durban bound into that, but everybody going north having a look and getting caught up. Queues on the northbound approach to Umhlanga from as far back as Blue Lagoon. Cape Town Nelson Mandela Boulevard still heavy out of the CBD towards Hospital Bend. That's quite heavy, in fact, for this time of year. Traffic standing from about the Strand Street exit, and the R300's under pressure into Mitchell's Plain. Queues towards the Stock Road exit. Backlogs from the N2 highway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome to it. We'll start with cricket. Now, while the 2024 ICC T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and the US is coming up, Proteas batsman Tristan Stubbs says his present focus is grabbing every opportunity that comes his way. The 23-year-old Proteas middle order batsman will once again be in line to take on India in the second of 3 2020 internationals at St. George's Park in Gqeberha tomorrow, 5 p.m. Now, both sides left frustrated after their trip to Durban for the first clash rained out without a ball being bowled, and they'll be hoping to get some valuable game time with so little international T20 cricket on the horizon for the hosts over the next 6 months. More cricket news. Dolphin star Bryce Parsons, Ethan Bosch, as well as Jason Smith and Kaya Zondo will do duty for the SAA side against India A in a 2-match series starting this week. Cricket South Africa has selected 2 squads for the 2 matches, and it'll involve Win Potchefstroom, while Smith and Zondo will play in the second 4-day match taking place in Benoni. Elsewhere, Cricket Australia will conduct a thorough review into yesterday's abandoned Big Bash League match in Geelong after the Melbourne Renegade Perth Scorchers. The clash called off with 6.5 overs bowled, and that was due to safety concerns about the pitch. Heavy rain at the weekend had seeped under the protective covers and left a wet patch at one end of the Cardinia Park wicket, but officials cleared the match to go ahead after ground staff scrambled to rectify the situation. Umpires then suspended play in the 7th over, with Perth 30 for 2 with Josh Inglis subjected to a 3-ball sequence from paceman Will Sutherland. England was stuck in the groin, and he played an inside edge and missed a delivery that ballooned off the pitch and left wicketkeeper South Africa's Quinton de Kock bemused. Now, boos ran out from the crowd when play was abandoned some 15 minutes later, the first time a match was called off due to an unsafe pitch in the Big Bash League's 12-year history. Soccer news. SuperSport United Gavin Hunt revealed he told former Mamelodi Sundowns striker Phakamani Mahlambi that he needs 6 months to lose weight. Hunt gave Mahlambi his DStv Premiership debut at Bizbez Wits when the striker was just 18. At the age of 21, the striker left Wits to join Al Ahly, but he only lasted a year before returning to South Africa to join Sundowns. And finally, rugby. Twickenham will host the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup final, with Sunderland Stadium of Lights chosen as the venue for the opening fixture. World Rugby and the Rugby Football Union made the announcement today after it had confirmed in August the 8 stadiums would be used for the tournament. The English team will open the World Cup, that's the 48,707-seater Stadium of Light, on the 22nd of August before the 16-team competition concludes at Twickenham on the 27th of September. Twickenham hosting the final opens, and there's plenty of a new world record crowd they're hoping for women's international rugby. And that's a wrap of your sport here on Beyond the Headlines. Look out for Top Sport with Michael Abramson. That comes up on SAFM between 7 and 8 p.m. For SAFM, I'm Zai Khan.
SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you, to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December, and we could be calling you. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes, and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit safm.co.za for more information. The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Hanjiera Sali. The 16 Days of Activism for No Violence Against Women and Children campaign. This year, be an activist. Play your part. Do not protect abusers. Report them. Hashtag No to GBVF.
SAFM leading the conversation. Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it's time for Money Web Market Update. Simon Brown is in this afternoon. Simon, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Tell us what's coming up on the Money Web Market Update.
Thanks, Aldrin. We've got a fairly packed show. We're going to be chatting with the chairperson of Eskom. Of course, they've announced that they've got a new CEO starting in the hot seat. That's an important one. Viv Governor will take us through markets. Fundili Shalobo is going to be talking around the Agribusiness Confidence Index. That's quite important. What happens if you ignore a CCMA judgment? Nothing good comes from that. Consumers are actually fairly positive about their financial futures. That according to Deloitte. We'll get into that with Roger George. Then we're going to be looking at stockpiles and how to protect themselves this festive season. That's an important point. There's going to be lots of stockpile activity. We need to keep it safe. We don't want any of those scams going down. If we turn to market, not a bad day on the market, but let's bring Henko Kruger in, MoneyWeb market commentator. Henko, how was the local JSE today? I'm seeing a fair bit of green on the screen.
Yes, good evening, Simon. Hello, Aldrin, and good evening to the listeners. Simon, the JSE was quite under pressure for most of the day, but here in the 11th hour, just before closing time, the JSE's all-share index finished 0.1% stronger at a level of 73,892 points. The financial index was 0.6% up, the industrial index 1% stronger, but it's the resources index that took quite a beating today and finished 2% weaker. At some stage this afternoon, the resources index even 3% down. Wow. And why? Mostly because of Anglo and Glencore. Anglo and Glencore being one of the 2 of the 10 largest companies on the JSE, and that's measured according to their market caps, as everyone will know. And today we saw Anglo lose 4.5% after it lost almost 10% at the end of last week, and Glencore finishing 3.5% down today. Now, if you see a large decrease in value like Anglo and Glencore, I usually say to the SAFM listeners, it's like having these 10 largest players on the JSE, these 10 large elephants swimming together in a swimming pool, and these 2 elephants deciding today to get out of the pool and decide to dry themselves off and not partake in the swimming pool today. And when the 2 of these, like Anglo and Glencore, get out of the pool, then the level of the water of the swimming pool decreases significantly. And that's why we saw the resources index go down today, as well as most of the JSE. So like I said, like Anglo, Glencore lost about 4% today, and BHP and British American Tobacco each finishing about 0.6% weaker. But it was a bit of a better day for companies like Standard Bank, AB InBev and Prosus finishing 1% up, Naspers gaining 1.5%, and Richmond finishing 2.2% stronger. It was also a relatively good Monday for companies like Northam and Italtal, each finishing 4% up, and then Montauk Renewable Energy, AECI and Vukile each gaining 3%, with Harmony and the MTN Group each having 2.5% at the end of the day. But then on the negative side again, Pepco Holdings finished 3% down, Telkom and Kumba each 2.5% weaker, and Growthpoint, Truworths, as well as DRD Gold each lost 2% today. If we move over to the commodities market, the price of gold now below $2,000, trading at $1,987 an ounce. Silver sitting comfortably at $23, platinum trading at $916, and palladium now at $954 an ounce. Brent crude trading at $75.70 a barrel. Unfortunately, the rand losing quite a bit of strength today, losing a lot of fuel today, and now trading at 19 rand and 10 cents to the US dollar, well above 19 rand. Also on the dot, $24 to the British pound, 20 rand and 55 cents to the euro, and 12 rand 55 to the Australian dollar. If we invest in Bitcoin, a whole Bitcoin will cost you $42,100, and in rands, that's more or less 815,000 rand. Simon, in short, that's how the markets performed today.
815,000 for one Bitcoin. Fortunately, we can buy them in smaller slices. Henko Kruger, MoneyWeb market commentator, appreciate your time. Aldrin, back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much. And Simon Brown is back again just after 6 o'clock. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086 000 2032. And remember that we're also streaming live on Instagram as well as YouTube. So you can find us live on those platforms. We're also live on X. breaking news that has just come through now. We're going to see if we can quickly try and find somebody to speak to us on it. The North Gauteng High Court has found that the recognition of King Misizulu Kazwelithini is unlawful and should be set aside. The court has now ordered that the matter of the recognition of Isilo of Amazulu is remitted to the first respondent, who is directed to act in terms of Section 8, subsection 4 and subsection 5 of the Traditional and Khoisan Leaders Act of 2019 to appoint an investigative committee as contemplated in that act to conduct an investigation and provide a report in respect of allegations that the identification of the second respondent was not done in terms of the customary laws and customs. Well, so there you have it. Definitely not the end of this matter. So now a committee is going to be set up. Big question is going to be also who will be sitting on that committee. And imagine if the former Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation, Chief Buthelezi, was alive. What would he say in response to this court judgment? 0614-104-107. You can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Good day, Aldrin. Aldrin, you know, the issue of 30-day payment is not working in Gauteng. For example, GDE takes 4 to 5 months before it pays the service providers. And that affects the employees. They end up not having their salaries in their pockets because of GDE, which exposes the operators to a situation whereby they have to provide service and that service not paid for. So obviously, it is clear that the situation in GDE or Gauteng is appalling, and something must be done to ensure that they pull up their socks.
Well, as you just heard there from Sizwa Pamlo, speaks for the Premier. As far as they're concerned, the only department that has a problem is the Department of Health as well as the Department of Infrastructure, because of the nature of the projects that they deal with, and also in light of the Health Department, the lawsuits that come their way. 0614-104-107.
Children, after NHI, education is next. Let's nationalize our education system. Our education system is imbalanced. It's not balanced at all. You find there are people who are writing other things. They are called independent, what. Hey, we must have one education system. My love in my respect.
Actually, my levy, it is something that we will be working on with the team. The Premier of Gauteng was actually speaking at an event quite recently. It was an event looking into the life, of course, of one of the Craddock Fours, Matthew Goniwe, and we were at the Leadership and Governance School, so the Matthew Goniwe Leadership and Governance School, and the Premier mentioned something very interesting, and I think we once touched on it on the show maybe a year or two ago, where we asked whether we should continue with a dual system, schooling system, where you have private and a public education system. Remember that there's a push in the UK to have a single schooling system. And the Premier said that actually now is the right time to push for a single schooling system where you don't have the IEB exams and then you have the National Senior Certificate exams. And what the IEB exams, for instance, does is that because their results come out much early before the National Senior Certificate exam results come out, those students, pupils, potential students, get ahead of the queue when it comes to applying for spots at various universities. So a conversation that we're going to put together for the show.
It's in those minds young and aflame, in the reach of those dare to reach, in the possibilities dancing just for you, and the eye and ear of a dream in fever. Yes, it's in hope. Hope and light pulled near and sent afar. Yes, it's in hope. From us to you. SABC Education. Enriching minds. Enriching lives. The 22-man battle at Borussia Park is high-level evidence of how powerful 3 points is. Borussia Mönchengladbach and SV Werder Bremen are both in dire need of victory to create a crucial path to the top half of the German Elite League. Who will dominate the 90 minutes? The Foles or the River Islanders? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness the nail-biting clash between Borussia Mönchengladbach and SV Werder Bremen on Friday, 15 December at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Going beyond the headline with Aldrin Sampear.
Let's take a call, 086 000 2032 and voice notes on 0614104107. Let's go to Yanga, who's joining us from Rosebank. Good evening.
Hi, Aldrin. How are you?
Good. How's it, Yanga?
I'm good. Aldrin, I just want to talk about, the newly appointed group CEO of ESCOM. And correct me if I'm wrong, Aldrin. Is in the guy who was, suspended in 2015 when he was a group capital executive.
Yes. So I don't know if you saw the report saying that he was, quote, pushed out during the state capture times. I don't know if you saw that report over the weekend. But sure, go ahead though, Yanga, make your point.
There's no, court judgment that's indicating that he was pushed out. And I'm asking myself, Aldrin, this process of recruitment of a CEO, only to appoint someone who was, expelled from the company. So, Aldrin, I'm disappointed, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. This guy was at ESCOM and was suspended, when he was a group captain.
Yeah.
And then you bring him, you think that, he will turn things around. Honestly, Aldrin.
Okay. Okay, Younger, point taken. I actually asked somebody around Tongat as well, and I asked whether he has been able to turn around Tongat and what could inform the confidence that is expressed in him. But still waiting to see what other people have to say with him. There are some mixed views with regards to that appointment. So hopefully one day we get to have a sit down with him as well and hear what his plans are and also his response to these questions around being previously at ESCOM Group Capital, then being suspended, but now coming back, of course, as the group chief CEO, the group CEO, is it group? Yeah, group CEO, and what his take is on this. 0614104107. You can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Okay, let's take some of your voice notes.
Listening to this guy of the road safety, or the one who said is providing the safe infrastructure, road infrastructure. I'm looking at the robots. People are destroying robots. Where there was robots, the following day there is no robot. And then I remember someone saying, let's take the photo of what we have so that the following day we can show people that, yes, this is the photo that there was a robot here. Now there is no more robot. Thank you, Aldrin.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and your team. Flores here from the Western Cape. Aldrin, talking about work and not taking time off. For those of us who are working on their own, who are single employees, yeah, we have it just as tough as you guys, in brackets, essential workers. But yeah, it's good for you to keep us company. I'm also taking a break only after New Year, so I will be on duty Christmas, New Year's, and I've done this now for the past 15 years. So, yeah, some works have benefits, some works don't. Have a good show, bye.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Well, let's quickly get reaction to this court judgment that has been handed down in the North Gauteng High Court, which has set aside the recognition of King Misizulu kaZwelithini as the legitimate heir to the throne of the Zulu nation. So that certificate of recognition that was given to him by the president has now been set aside. It was given on the 17th of March, and the court has now instructed the president that he must appoint an investigative committee as contemplated in the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, or Act 3 of 2019, to conduct an investigation and provide a report in respect of allegations that the identification of the second respondent, that is King Misizulu kaZwelithini, was not done in terms of customary laws and customs. We speak to Professor Musa Xulu, who's the founder of Indonza Yesizwe, a think tank, and is now joining us on the line. Professor Xulu, good evening. Thank you so much for making time for us. What do you make of this court order?
Well, it was not completely unexpected. I've been following this matter for quite some time. What happened, I think there were omissions, firstly, in terms of the signing of registers and ensuring that all the houses of the traditional Zulu royal household were present when, I don't know what to say, Prince King Misuzulu was nominated by the royal family. So that's why then the court has said, no, there must be an investigation into that. And when the president recognized King Misuzulu, I don't know what to say now, but there were already, complaints from the royal family, and some of them had been formally lodged with him. But he just went ahead, and I think it comes from there. He could have waited, and there were other committees that, like the one that was led by former Premier Willis Mtono, which had recommended that he should wait a little bit until the issues of representativity in the committees that sit in the royal household are dealt with and to the satisfaction of the Zulu royal household, the family there. So it's not completely unexpected.
Not completely unexpected, but the Pietermaritzburg High Court dealt with that question around who was in that meeting as well before. And even though, as it was argued even before, that wasn't really a question that was before the court at that time, but the court went ahead and dealt with that matter and found that the meeting that was held was legitimately called, and it included members of the family.
Yeah, even there, Aldrin, there's a problem because the judge decided to deal with a matter that was not in front of him. And so if a matter, he would have known maybe through the grapevines that there are such issues. But if a matter is not in front of a judge, it is not clear how he decided to deal with that matter. And that has been raised by several lawyers that possibly he should not have dealt with it because it was not in front of him.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. We'll deal with some of the aspects that have come out of the court decision, perhaps maybe tomorrow. But thank you so much, Professor Musa Xulu, who is the founder of Indonza Yesizwe think tank. So there you have it. The certificate of recognition of King Misizulu kaZwelithini has been set aside, and now an investigating team must be put up by the president as per the order of the High Court. In the meantime, who will take up the position as, I guess in this particular case, the most senior person that will be able to become the regent of the Zulu nation? What's going to happen next while that investigation continues? Or could we possibly see an appeal on this court order? We've come to the end of our voyage. Thank you so much for choosing Flight SAFM BTH 326 with me, Aldrin Sampear. Today we play out with Toto Africa, and our parting shot is from Mother Teresa, who once said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." And Joe is reading our credits this evening.
As we land on today's journey, it's a short flight this week for the BTH team, and behind the mic, Captain Aldrin Sampear, Zaikan on the Sports Desk production team, the cabin crew, Temba, Kanya, Vosane, Phineas and Lundi. Have a great one, guys, and thanks for all the hard work.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
And remember to love each other and lead with compassion. Dotsins, enjoy the rest of your evening.
The moonlit wings reflect the stars that guide me towards salvation. I stopped an old man along the way, hoping to find some more